It is 10 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. With Super Bowl 59 in the books, the NFL season is officially over. Fox Sports has projected a Super Bowl record average audience of 126 million U.S. viewers across TV and streaming platforms, with a peak of over 135 million viewers in the second quarter. College hoops action tonight. Big game in Lexington. Number 5, Tennessee, travels north to visit 15th-ranked Kentucky as the Vols look to avenge a loss to the Wildcats 2 weeks ago in Knoxville. Tip-off at 6 p.m. Vol Network coverage starts at 5:30 tonight on The Zone. And Vanderbilt remains at home, looking to knock off number 1 ranked Auburn. That's also a 6 p.m. tip at Memorial Gym. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
We got to start in the obvious place this morning. This is not a news-packed time of year. Will Bowling, who just departed for the day after Ramon, Kellen, and Will described it as June but cold in terms of sports talk conversation. But nonetheless, we got pressing news to start with. The Post Malone Oreos are in the break room. Jackson's recommendation was that we all go try one. I'm the only one who finds them disgusting, which is surprising to no one, but I don't know if that's actually because they're bad or if it's just because Jackson, Lucas, and Bert will eat anything, no matter what it is, how long it's been out there, what the flavor profile of it might be, including what kind of jelly beans were you eating a couple of years ago? It was like taco stand jelly beans?
I was curious, and they were intriguing. They were terrible, mostly,
and he ate
intriguing.
the whole bag. It didn't matter that they were terrible. He ate them anyway.
Though.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of trying the Post Malone Oreos in the break room. I'm not going to go out and buy a pack of those, but yeah, I'll give one a try.
There is no steeper drop-off than Monday after Super Bowl to Tuesday after Super Bowl, where to open the show Monday, we are talking about the biggest night in American football, the biggest television night in America of the calendar year. And then the Tuesday after Super Bowl, we are talking about Post Malone Oreos.
Like show?
I mean, we could start there if you want to. Luka Doncic.
Big win last night.
Got his first start. It was a big win last night. Also, what's going on with your boy Dalton Connect? Is he a Laker again or not?
He's a Laker. He's a Laker.
Oh, no, coming up in 45 minutes.
Save it. You can't see this. He accuses me all the time of being the selfish one, and yet he gatekeeps his content for specific segments because he can't come up with something else on the fly.
That's right. Keep it in the back pocket. We have a pretty good giveaway for Oh No today, by the way.
Do we? What do we got?
2 tickets to that Outlaws Music Festival with Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, a bunch of other really good artists.
Just casually go see Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan.
Don't call us yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. At
Not yet.
10:45 today. I want to go to that. Can I have the tickets?
No.
All right. 615-737-1045. Not for the tickets, just if you want to get involved this morning. I don't know. It's either the Post Malone Oreos or Aaron Rodgers. Pick your poison.
Well, so the Post Malone Oreos.
Yeah, correct. Because that's what I've got to work with today. Well, God knows we've done the Aaron Rodgers thing, I think, in 3 different off seasons in some form or fashion. But it's not going to go anywhere, and especially because there's a new betting favorite out in terms of quarterback dominoes. So who are the biggest quarterback dominoes of the offseason? It's Sam Darnold.
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers. Cam Ward. Shedeur Sanders. Free agency will come first.
Yeah, I think you push the draft down and focus on free agency initially, because that also informs and molds our approach into the NFL draft and how we discuss it after free agency takes place.
People are convinced, by the way, that because we have a spectacular prize for Oh No today in the F&M Bank chat, where you can live stream the show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, they are saying that it will guarantee that the submissions will be terrible because we have the best possible prize.
Let's hope not. Let's consider this a challenge. But yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the early betting favorites to be the next landing spot for Aaron Rodgers. DraftKings has them at 2-1.
Then it's the Vikings at plus 400. The Titans.
No. Then it's the Raiders, who are at 3-1.
We're looking at 2 different things, but both have him as favored to land with the Steelers.
So it goes Steelers 2-1, Raiders 3-1, Niners are at plus 350, then the Vikings at plus 400, and then the Titans at plus 750.
The Colts at plus 850.
Yeah.
Flacco only on a 1-year deal there? I thought it was a 2-year for some reason. Either way.
Let me check.
That is going to be something.
No, Flacco's a free agent. Yeah, it was a 1-year deal.
That is going to be something that is worth paying attention to. Obviously, the question becomes, if you're Brian Callahan, all right, fair to expect that the coach, this particular coach, would have a fair amount of say in the quarterback, regardless of coaching for job security in 2025 or not. This person was hired for expertise in quarterback play. If you're Brian Callahan, do you want to ride or die on the SS Aaron Rodgers? Because that does not sound like the most stable approach to a year that you're coming in already under significant scrutiny. I would not want myself attached. I don't know what I would rather not attach myself to if I was an NFL head coach, a former first-time head coach heading into his second season, where the first season was awful. Will Levis or Aaron Rodgers? That's not how I would. Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career. Because there was a time when anybody would want Aaron Rodgers. I mean, hell, there's a fair amount of teams that wanted him the last go-around before the Jets decided they were going to trade for him. Comes with a bunch of different quirks, we'll call them. Maybe the quirks are survivable if he's good enough at football again, but there's no guarantee that he's going to be that kind of a football player anymore.
Yeah,
they had a worse record with Aaron Rodgers.
They did.
Than they did the year prior with Zach Wilson, who we all agree, in his most recent appearance as an NFL starting quarterback, could not play.
Yet, as Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old, in a year coming off an exploded Achilles, he threw for 3,897 yards, 28 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. That is better than a lot of your options in free agency, than the vast majority of your options in free agency, purely from a football standpoint. Would you rather have 28 touchdowns to 11 interceptions or Jameis Winston? Would you rather have 28 touchdowns to 11 interceptions or Justin Fields? And maybe it gets a little more interesting there. But if Rodgers did not have the off-field stuff coming with him, this would feel like a no-brainer, right?
For Tennessee?
As a veteran option to stabilize things, to be a stopgap?
I mean, if he wasn't coming off of... No, I don't think it's a no-brainer because he's not excellent anymore. He may still be functional, and that's good enough for a period of time.
That's what you're looking for in a veteran quarterback.
No, but I'm not talking about, Lucas, like functional within the structure of an offense. The structure of the Aaron Rodgers offense is whatever Aaron Rodgers wants to do.
Right. Yes. And that is part of the context here. But we cannot talk about Aaron Rodgers compared to what the Titans ultimately want at quarterback. We have to talk about Aaron Rodgers compared to the other options.
And the other options are either, I mean, I'm not going to say that Sam Darnold's too expensive because that's what a quarterback costs. But if I'm investing in solutions around the quarterback, I'm not going to go all in if I'm Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan on Sam Darnold, who's had one good season, one genuinely good season, and two really bad performances in their most important games of those seasons. Because again, you're not equipped to set Sam Darnold up for success the way that the Minnesota Vikings were. Now, maybe you believe in your plan and your process, and you'll get to that point because you can't operate. I mean, you can't not take risks in NFL roster construction. It's a part of the job to a degree. But you have to make calculated risks here or take calculated risks here. And the calculations for Sam Darnold in a Tennessee Titans uniform behind an offensive line that's still very much in progress, an offensive skill group that's still very much looking for high-level playmakers. The best thing that you have on offer right now is Tony Pollard. Is it Calvin Ridley? Pollard and Ridley are good players.
Yeah,
Like
Pollard
I
coming
think,
off a career year.
well, volume for sure, contributing to that. But
And
you're
yards,
right. Yeah.
career high in multiple categories.
Would Titans fans say that Calvin Ridley met expectations last year? Because he's a 1,000-yard receiver, and he was the year prior in Jacksonville, and Jags fans were just kind of like, yeah, we can, we'll figure something else out. I don't know. For the price point, again, he was making a lot less in Jacksonville than he is here in Tennessee, and if anytime you talk about the contracts with these guys, it is important to hold them accountable for their level of play versus what their paycheck is. I have, Lucas has pointed out that I've been pretty strident when it comes to pocket watching on some of these guys. Some criticism is fair when that criticism is earned. Calvin Ridley at the start of the season was not a consistent enough player. But I thought he evened out a little bit given the circumstance. And if you're going to talk about this entire season being nuked by quarterback play, should you not give Calvin Ridley some degree of credit?
Yeah, for being a 1,000-yard receiver in the midst of all that.
This quarterback situation in particular.
It's weird with Ridley because it didn't feel like he got going until the season almost felt. By the time Ridley hit his stride, the season almost felt lost. Like the season was what it was by the time we got to the Detroit game when Calvin Ridley had his first big game production-wise as a Titan. Whereas Pollard, I think, kind of hit the ground running, quite literally, from the jump and was a bright spot in this offense. And at times was the only functional thing about this offense was the ability to rely on Tony Pollard. But yeah, I was looking at that the other day and thought, he really had a 1,000-yard season in the midst of all of that. The ups and mostly downs.
Who'd you do that with yesterday?
Mason Rudolph.
Jacoby Myers?
Yeah, with the Raiders.
Yeah. So it's still a significant statistical accomplishment. I don't want to take anything away from Calvin Ridley or Jacoby Myers because they were 2,000-yard receivers on two bad football teams last year. Somebody's got to catch the targets. Somebody's got to make some level of plays, and Calvin Ridley was paid to be a high-level complementary piece. Calvin Ridley is compensated as a player at the top of tier 2 of the wide receiver market. And that's fine if you have the complementary piece for Calvin Ridley, which the Titans did not have last year. You thought it could be DeAndre Hopkins. The Titans obviously didn't involve DeAndre Hopkins very much in the offense during his time here. He's spoken on that. He also was dealing with, if I remember correctly, a knee issue coming into the season. Didn't cost him any time necessarily, but probably hampered his ability to contribute right out of the gate. So you're working with one hand tied behind your back, and then the Traylon Burks thing never manifested the way that they tried to manifest it into existence, and by the time they turned to NWI, it was kind of all too late. So what you're offering any of these quarterbacks has to be improved. This is not, again, in the same way that we talk about wide receivers, or quarterbacks rather, this is not an excellent wide receiver class. Doesn't mean that you can't find contributors on a roster that needs an influx of youth and talent there. Every time I peel through one of these big boards or mock drafts, the thing that keeps being emphasized to me is that this is a stellar defensive tackle class, of which the Titans already have 2. There are some other players on the offensive line that can help you right away. There's going to be a lot of different ways that you have to address this to make this viable in year 2 under Brian Callahan. The question is Aaron Rodgers going to help you or hinder you in these kind of situations? And I don't think a player like that at that stage of his career is going to come onto a roster that's significantly younger than him, and improve it in meaningful ways. Maybe I'm too down on Aaron Rodgers and the person who I think Aaron Rodgers is. I wouldn't pretend to know who Aaron Rodgers is. I haven't met him.
No, I agree. I mean,
it's just tough to wrap my head around that specific personality, what we know of that personality, coming into a place like this and helping things.
It's hard to ignore what he has left in his wake over the last couple of years.
Because I'm just looking at Garrett Wilson, and the Titans don't even have a good enough player like Garrett Wilson to run off. So we'll see how that all plays out. Steelers betting favorites right now for Aaron Rodgers' services on DraftKings. Coming up next, there's a big basketball game tonight. You got Tennessee, you got Kentucky. There's a report from Austin Price on the morning show talking about the status of Rick Barnes in the modern age of collegiate athletics. We'll get to that coming up next. Big night in hoops for Tennessee and Kentucky. Tennessee trying to get even after the Wildcats upset them a couple of weeks ago. Now Kentucky ranked 15th. Going to try and complete the season sweep over the Vols. Now, sweeps in this series with Rick Barnes and obviously now Mark Pope in his first year, but before him, John Calipari, they don't happen very often when these two teams play. It's been pretty evenly matched, even though Rick Barnes has brought a level of competitiveness to that series that Vols fans, I think, are pretty pleased with. You like the way that, you certainly don't like the way that Tennessee lost to Kentucky the first time around where they just shot themselves out of the game.
Yep. 11 of 45 from three.
Just slightly north, if my math is mathing, of 27%.
Not good.
You're looking...
Good for you, though.
Huh?
That was impressive by you.
Is that correct, though? Did we double check
We should fact check that. Nobody, you just assumed that I knew what I was talking about, even though I said it with zero confidence.
24%.
Oh, that's closer than you would have gotten.
Wrong again.
3% is pretty substantial when it comes to 3 points.
Kentucky swept Tennessee in 2023 during the 2023 SEC slate. Last year, the road teams won both matchups. So Tennessee obviously dropped the home game. Vols are 2.5-point favorites going into Lexington tonight. Number 15, Kentucky, and number 5, Tennessee. Vols dropped one despite going 2-0 last weekend. The AP poll was in a kind of a weird spot where number 1, Auburn, lost to Florida. Bama won. So Bama naturally figured it would jump up to number 1 because Duke, who was number 2, lost to Clemson at home. Bama jumped up to number 2, but still behind Auburn, who still got the most first-place votes, barely edging out Bama. So that does set up a great matchup, 1 versus 2 Saturday in the basketball version of the Iron Bowl. But, yeah, besides the point. Tennessee trying to avenge a loss where it was just a weird game, right? We have never seen Tennessee get into that situation in the Rick Barnes era.
No, not
shooting for the sake of shooting.
Never looked like that.
Never. Quite the opposite, in fact.
So, logic and the season sample size would tell you that Tennessee is should be favored in this game. Vegas is telling you that Tennessee is favored in this game. And I would feel pretty good, even though there's no sure things about playing in the SEC on the road, and that's going to be a hostile environment. I still feel pretty good about Tennessee. You got 4 players averaging double digits in scoring. I think Lanier's kind of evened out a little bit since we talked about the struggles that he's had in the last 2 months or over the course of the last 2 months. The Missouri game, you guys, I assume, talked about that when I was out. 85-81 win over Missouri, where he scored, Zakai Ziegler, 21 points, had 8 assists, 3 rebounds. He played out of his mind. There's just not a lot. There was not a lot about Kentucky in that first game that blew me away. They just didn't make the kind of errors that Tennessee was making, and they were hitting their threes.
Well, they couldn't miss from three,
throughout
especially
the course
in the first
of that
half.
game.
They ended up shooting upwards of 50% from beyond the arc.
Yeah, but it wasn't like there was a ton of volume. Like, they were just efficient with their shots.
Crazy efficient. And that's exactly what Tennessee's done in the last 2 games.
In Tennessee, to your point about they were missing uncontested shots.
Yes.
So many uncontested shots in that first Kentucky game. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good. And Tennessee only took 15 threes against Missouri last Wednesday and hit 10 of them. And then they followed that up with a 70-point performance blowout at Oklahoma on Saturday. So in the last 2 games, Tennessee is shooting 53% from 3. How sustainable is that? Going into Lexington, I don't know. But you got to think it'll be better than 11 of 45. The approach will be different. And Tennessee, it's weird to say because that Kentucky game was only 2 weeks ago, but Tennessee does feel like a different offensive team after that Kentucky game because Zakai Ziegler missed the next game against Florida. There was kind of this realization that Jordan Gainey can run things for this Tennessee offense, that they can remain efficient. And that's opened some things up for Rick Barnes and how he utilizes Zakai more off the ball. Maybe give Zakai a little bit more rest. And then you have Igor Milicic Jr. That didn't have a huge impact in the Oklahoma game, but we mentioned the historic performance he put on against Mizzou. First player in this century, what was it, 20-plus points, 10-plus rebounds, 5-plus assists, 4-plus blocks. It goes on and on. So they're kind of hitting their stride offensively at the moment. Its best version of itself was in the second half of the Missouri game last Wednesday, putting up 57 points. So the hope is this Tennessee team will look extremely different from the Tennessee team Kentucky beat in Knoxville a couple weeks ago, that they took some lessons from that Kentucky game, and they're on a 3-game win streak since, beating 2 ranked opponents along the way.
Kentucky's never had a winning record against Rick Barnes since he's been the coach of Tennessee. Right now, it's an even split.
11 and 11, I believe.
22 games total, 11 and 11. It's pretty interesting. Kentucky is only, and this is courtesy of Kentucky Sports Radio, who was not thrilled with the fact that we leapfrogged them in the much discussed, much celebrated sports media, sports radio rankings the other weekend. Now, don't start fights with KSR. I don't want that smoke.
That's your face on it. I don't care.
Although they got it wrong. They said I was from Henderson, Kentucky, which I don't know who fed them that misinformation. But
Me.
You. Why would you do that? Just
to cause chaos.
Okay, very good. That's a weird and bizarre way to try and cause chaos. But as you like, Kentucky only 5-4 against Rick Barnes at Rupp Arena. They've done a lot better in Knoxville as of late. And certainly Mark Pope, this would be, if Mark Pope, so let's just take it from the Kentucky angle before we talk more about Rick Barnes and what Austin Price had to say on the morning show about the Tennessee basketball coach's future. Mark Pope has exceeded all expectations.
I mean, let's talk after the season ends. But yeah, no, for sure. Kentucky's played.
To date, Mark Pope has exceeded expectations.
Feel as excited about Kentucky basketball as they have been since, I don't know. I mean, when's the last time that fan base was this juiced in February?
It's been so stagnant around Cal for, I would argue, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of he's kind of energized the fan base a little bit, but Kentucky is dealing with injuries. Jackson Robinson is out for this game tonight. He was phenomenal, stepping up for Lamont Butler, who was out against Tennessee 2 weeks ago. Butler is probable tonight, but it's just kind of been up and down with the injuries all year, and they were able to get right. They went on a quick 2-game slide, losing to Arkansas, Cal coming into their place and knocking them off. They gave up 89 points against Arkansas and 98 points against Ole Miss in the game after that before getting right against a dreadful South Carolina team that's still winless in SEC play. So Kentucky's defense is not playing well right now. Tennessee's got to be able to take advantage. Brandon on the F&M Bank chat says Vols will have to go more inside out. UK's interior defense is bad. Tennessee just settled for the open 3 last time. Obviously just couldn't make them.
And I wonder, you're starting to learn things about Mark Pope as the Kentucky basketball coach, and Rick Barnes is obviously a known commodity across decades at various stops in coaching. Mark Pope with the Wildcats, though, it does seem like they're kind of settling in for the idea, not that there can't be improvements made and that there shouldn't be improvements made, but they're basically expecting, with a Mark Pope coached team, to be a better offensive team on a night in, night out basis than they are defensively. And that's kind of borne itself out through these first, 23 games that they've played so far this season. At Utah Valley, rather, and in 5 seasons at BYU, Mark Pope's teams ranked better in offensive efficiency than they did defensive efficiency 7 times. So that's 9 total seasons at Utah Valley and BYU. That's just kind of continued to hold its course under Mark Pope in Kentucky at this point in time. For the Rick Barnes part of the conversation, there's no question that Tennessee has enjoyed the Rick Barnes experience. I understand that there's been some wavering at points in time, but it's never really been, on the whole, Vols fans are grateful that Rick Barnes is their coach. Even if there gets to be some moments where, is he going to be able to adjust? Or, I don't love this style of play. Or, is he going to figure out his rotations? All these different kind of things. He's had some ebbs and flows while he's been in Knoxville. But on the whole, he's had, I would consider Rick Barnes a great success. The future of Rick Barnes at an advanced age is something that I've certainly been curious about. You've got people like Jim Larinaga at Miami up and quitting in the middle of the season, or I guess not even halfway through.
Like a month in
the season. At Miami, after he's had success, now Miami fielded one of the worst basketball teams in the sport this year in men's college basketball, so maybe that had something to do with the fact that he's having a hard time adjusting to the new age, the name, image, and likeness, the conversations that you're now having to have in living rooms and how much different they are than what he's accustomed to. And Rick Barnes, who's definitely an old school type of personality, but I think has managed trends pretty well across his entire career. Doesn't sound like he's going anywhere. This was Austin Price on the morning show, kind of detailing that about Rick Barnes.
I think the natural notion off of that comment made people think, well, this is it, right? I don't think he meant it that way. I think he meant like, I might have got out a few years ago, but this has kind of reinvigorated me. Having Zakai has reinvigorated me. He's adapted. Look, Roy Williams and Jay Wright and so many others of his era have not adapted to the NIL transfer portal world. Rick Barnes, who I would have told you 5 years ago, there's no way in the world he would adapt to this, has adapted beautifully to this. And he is really, just kind of run with it. I think he enjoys the fact of, like, he's recruiting older players who have developed and been able to kind of mold the clay when it's already formed versus, like, when it's a brand new batch. And so, like, he's done a really good job with the kids in the transfer portal and this era. And so I think he's recruited as if he's going to be back. And, like, I think he wouldn't be putting the amount of time into some of the players they're recruiting if I think he thought I'm out at the end of the year. So, again, as of right now, it certainly feels like to me there's a strong chance he is back for next season.
So the question stems from one or multiple quotes from Rick Barnes about Zakai Ziegler talking about just how impactful Zakai has been since arriving to Rick Barnes personally in Knoxville. This quote was from about a month ago. Quote, Zakai has been an incredible blessing for me personally. I don't know what I would do without him. He's my comfort blanket. He was speaking to, this was the Big Orange Tip-Off Club a couple of weeks ago, where he said, I don't know if I'd still be doing it if Zakai Ziegler didn't end up at Tennessee. He mentioned a few weeks ago, he's done at multiple turns, he has said things along these lines like, I woke up today thinking, man, Zakai's a senior. I mean, I don't know what we're going to do when he's gone. So it's prompted questions about, is Rick going to be ready to hang it up after Zakai Ziegler walks out the door, with how much he leans on Zakai as that culture setter, as the leader, all of the things you want in your point guard that's been around for a while. And it's crazy to think, when Rick Barnes came to Tennessee, the thought was, okay, maybe you get 2 to 3 years out of him before he kind of goes off into the sunset and hangs it up. Nobody could have predicted a decade of Rick Barnes coaching Tennessee and to the levels that he's brought them. Like, Tennessee is a top 5 team again in the latest AP poll, even though they dropped a spot. Mike Wilson's been kind of updating these numbers week to week to week of Knox News. The Vols have been ranked in the top 5 of the AP poll 35 times in the last 7 seasons. They had been ranked in the top 5 17 times in the last 70 years before that. They've been ranked for 74 straight weeks in the AP poll. It's the 3rd longest active win streak or active streak in the nation. They've been ranked nonstop since the start of the 2021-22 season. So people have their gripes about Rick and the March success or lack thereof with the deep runs, just the one Elite 8 appearance. But the standard that he is just kind of set in stone for Tennessee year to year to year is not not a place we thought we'd be 10 years down the road when he was hired after being fired from Texas.
He's 70. Going to be 71 in July. It makes it even crazier that Pete Carroll is going to the Raiders to rebuild them at 73 years old. That notion. But to his point, I mean, I'm sure that happens to anybody throughout the course of an extended career. If you've been doing one thing, maybe not in the same spot your entire life, change of scenery can be good, and especially over the course of the 10 years that Rick Barnes has been doing that job since they hired him in 2015, it probably does take something to kind of reinvigorate that passion after you've suffered. They've had some significant disappointments in the tournament. They've had some gut-wrenching losses as competitive teams and not obviously achieved their ultimate goal, which is a national championship. But there's nothing to indicate that Rick Barnes isn't capable of handling what the present of collegiate athletics is. The way that you're seeing a lot of coaches just either be unwilling to adapt or not necessarily have the skills to adapt, because it's significantly different. And the ins and outs of it, I couldn't speak to. I wasn't, I'm not recruiting college basketball or football players on a regular basis on a collegiate coaching staff. But you understand how the pivot happens and how year-over-year free agency has essentially turned these guys' lives upside down from how much more involved every day you have to be to make sure that you can secure the most viable roster.
But in a weird way, it seems like that's what's invigorated him. The coaches can process that one of two ways. Roy Williams said, no, this is not, like Nick Saban, this is not the college basketball I came up in. I'm good here. And maybe that has something to do with the fact that Tennessee had an NIL kind of foundation laid. I feel like the thing that probably makes that side of the job so exhausting is having to chase and chase and chase and talk to donors and talk to boosters and talk to fans, literally chasing money, saying we're not going to be competitive until we can match in this regard. And that's not really been an issue for Tennessee. But at the same time, famously, that's not necessarily an issue for Miami, right? What's the guy's name? Ruiz? What's the company? Life Wallet, whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what it is?
Is Life Wallet still viable?
I don't know.
I think they might have had some financial issues.
But just shelling out money to players coming in and out, and Jim Larrañaga says, "No, I'm good. I can't do this anymore." We made a Final Four run, and I've got players coming to me afterwards saying that they want out and they want more money and this and that. It's done the opposite to Rick Barnes, to where you can flip your roster so much easier now than you could previously. And he still has that pipeline in recruiting, but you look at this team now, the biggest faces of it, apart from Zakai Ziegler, Chaz Lanier, transfer. Igor Milicic Jr., transfer. Jordan Gainey, transfer. Felix Okpara, transfer. It's really just Jemai Mashak, Zakai Ziegler, and Cade Phillips that are making an impact, that were recruited and developed by Rick Barnes. You still get a chance to develop these guys. A Darlin Stone Dubar coming over from Hofstra is looking to elevate at this level, but it's just so interesting how that's been the thing that has kind of lit a fire under it. It's been this fountain of youth of sorts, where for other coaches, it's been the thing that has them tapping out quicker than maybe they normally would have.
So Tennessee at Kentucky tonight. I believe it's a 6 p.m. tip. You can hear it right here on 104.5 The Zone, Vol Network coverage. Bob Kessling and Bert Bertelkamp on the call. It will be an interesting game for certain. It should be one that Tennessee can handle. All tough challenges, SEC play on the road, but still, where the Vols and their strengths are versus what Kentucky is capable of doing, you need to be able to go on the road in this kind of a game and do what you did to Missouri, do what you did to a couple of these teams throughout the course of conference play, which is just continue to suffocate them defensively. That's what
Oklahoma just shut them down on Saturday.
I mean, it wasn't really even close. And I know Rick Barnes said something to the effect of, well, it all looks better when the shots are falling. And that's true. But still, to hold Oklahoma to 52 points at home,
the OU was
pretty impressive.
He held them to 17 made field goals on 53 attempts.
Coming up next, what do I have to give away?
2 tickets to the Outlaw Music Festival, features artists like Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, as well as a $100 A Moment's Peace gift card.
All you have to do is call us 615-737-1045 and tell us what in sports made you say, oh no. If there's something in your life that made you say, oh no, in sports this week, call us 615-737-1045, the number for the opportunity to win a $100 gift card to a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa and a pair of tickets to the Outlaw Music Festival, which is featuring Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, and many other artists, which Jackson can share with you once he's done answering your phone call, 615-737-1045 for the opportunity to win. This segment is always made possible by a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. Hey, you out there, did you forget that Valentine's Day is this weekend? Because if you did, a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa, really good spot to be. Lucas, did you forget about Valentine's Day?
I did not. I never do. I have forgotten anniversaries. I have forgotten birthdays. I have not forgotten Valentine's.
I feel like that's true of most people. I have definitely forgotten birthdays and anniversaries, but Valentine's Day, pretty safe bet. But if you did, a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa, they've got you covered. Mine is Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl. How many times in Taylor Swift's life do you think that she's been booed?
Great question.
Like, loudly, visibly booed.
Not many.
I would imagine it's happened at some point, and certainly there are hecklers when you go places and when you're somebody of that kind of fame and stature.
No, I mean, almost every crowd she has stepped out in front of has been her crowd.
She was not in front of her crowd at Super Bowl 59. It was a very heavily attended Eagles contingent at Super Bowl 59. Chiefs obviously get blown out, but this is in the pregame where they're showing various people on the Jumbotron and they're talking about the game and all these different things, and they put up a side shot of Taylor Swift, and all of a sudden, a very significant amount of booing starts to occur.
Well, they consider her to be a traitor.
Who, the Eagles?
Yeah, Taylor Swift, a Pennsylvania native.
Oh, but come on.
Who I think has claimed in the past that she, supported the Eagles. I don't know how much she actually cared.
Really? Oh, I don't remember that at all. Okay, well, then maybe that's viable. But anyway, they show her on the Jumbotron.
She obviously moved to Middle Tennessee pretty early on.
She hears all the boos. She looks at the Jumbotron. She looks at, I can't remember who's sitting in the box with her that's in the camera shot, but she looks over and she says, "What the F is happening?"
What is going on?
What the F is going on?
What's that sound they're making?
What is that sound? I've never heard that sound in my life before. What is that?
How come on the scoreboard we're not winning?
Those are the boos. And the boos were there for Taylor Swift. Her reaction made me say, oh no.
The Charlotte Hornets made me say, oh no, this past weekend. After seemingly acquiring Dalton Connect, among others, in
NBA
a trade
legend.
That, yes, Laker legend, that included Mark Williams. So the Lakers shipped Connect and some other assets to Charlotte in exchange for center Mark Williams and some other assets, as the Lakers tried to address a big need, which is the center position. But this comes down just yesterday, or really it came down over the weekend. Mark Williams failed his physical. The trade got nixed. Dalton Connect goes back to L.A. He was on the bench last night during Luka's debut. He did not play. He was not dressed out. He looked miserable sitting on that bench. Shams tweeting out yesterday, the Charlotte Hornets have been in contact with the NBA as they explore options to dispute the L.A. Lakers' failed physical assessment of Mark Williams. The Williams/Dalton Connect trade was nixed Saturday, and now the Hornets are weighing avenues to challenge. So, my oh no in sports this week goes to the Charlotte Hornets for missing a chance to land future NBA Hall of Famer Dalton Connect. I did feel for Dalton last night. That's tough.
Scene.
Looks
tough. Yeah, you get traded, and then you get forced to go back to the place that tried to trade you.
They hit you with an Uno reverse card.
Because the guy that they traded for failed the physical upon landing in Los Angeles. So, future Dalton Connect, or future LA Laker legend Dalton Connect, who will have his number 4 jersey retired at crypto at some point, has a bright future ahead of him. But this whole situation made me say, oh no, this weekend.
Jackson?
Mine also comes from the world of the NBA. There was another trade that the Lakers made. The one for Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis.
Famously.
So Anthony Davis, Mavericks debut. This is what made me say, oh no. He ended up getting hurt. And they dropped this news, just tried to slip it out there during the Super Bowl. that he is going to be out indefinitely.
It was during the game, wasn't it?
It was
Super
during the
Bowl.
game.
They just snuck it out there.
They're like, hey, he's going to be out a while.
It was like, just sliding a piece of paper across the table to Shams. Like, well, everybody's looking up at the TV. Like, here, just put this out right now.
Tweet it now.
He's going to miss multiple weeks due to an injury.
Do they think we're stupid?
Do they think we're not on our phones during the Super Bowl?
They must think that we're stupid.
They're like, go ahead and put it out now. Yeah, that brand new player we just traded Luka for.
I had no context. I knew, I saw it happen. I saw the notification going around. I'm sure somebody sent it to our group message or something like that. I did not have the presence of mind to realize, oh no, they did this bleep in the middle of the Super Bowl.
Oh no.
That's a good one. 615-737-1045. What in sports made you say, oh no? How about Julio up first?
Hi, well, you just stole my Anthony Davis one, but I'll give you another one local. The oh no asked Nashville Soccer Club about to start their season. Asked season ticket holders to blind buy the new jersey before we've seen it at all. And for 2 weeks, couldn't get into the link that they sent, couldn't buy the jersey. Looking forward to the event on Saturday, but still, I dropped the money and have no idea what the jersey will look like. So that was my oh no, as well as Patrick Mahomes' legacy as the GOAT.
Oh, okay. Just slid that one in there on the side. Remember to stay on hold for the opportunity to win the tickets. Okay, corporate man, go ahead and cape up for your soccer team. What happened?
Well, the secondary kit will come out this weekend. They're unveiling it at the factory at Franklin. By the way, if you're going out there, swing by, get some Hattie B's on your way in and out as you check out Nashville's unveiling.
Double corporate.
That's
double
right.
corporate. Double speak there. Look
the old
at
twofer.
He's like, see, Titans, this could be yours.
Again, by the day, he is becoming more like me, and it has to make him sick inside.
No, I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of that situation that Julio is referencing with season ticket members, but I do respect his blind faith to pay for the jersey without even seeing it. I respect your fanhood, Julio, and we'll see you out at Geodis Park for the home opener next Saturday.
Caleb is next.
Hey, good afternoon, guys, or morning.
Hey.
Mine goes to Tom Brady. I mean, just when you think that the Super Bowl couldn't get any worse, the game was bad enough, but, I mean, I could have come up with what he said, and I'm not even a commentator.
Yeah, we were just talking about that yesterday. I said the most useful thing I got out of Tom Brady's 4 hours worth of Super Bowl analysis was, Patrick Mahomes isn't comfortable. Look at his footwork.
Yeah, right.
Like that was kind of the peak of the insight that I got from Tom Brady.
3rd and 15. They really need a big play here, Kevin. You know what I mean? Like it's that type of analysis. They're playing the Browns mid-season. Right? Watch out for Myles Garrett on this play. Like, yeah, Tom. No, we know that's the guy to circle for this one. So yeah, I want to learn something, Tom. But he should continue to get better.
We'll see. Corey is next.
What's going on, fellas?
Yo.
All right, my oh no is for Dan Orlovsky for ESPN on live television, and they had him trying New Orleans food.
Yeah.
The ones I saw was the po' boy. Oh, man, it was like the guy doesn't have any taste buds. And then he tried frog legs. They were laughing. If I'm correct, Jeff Saturday was laughing like, That was hilarious, but it's like, come on, man. Do you season your chicken with rosemary and thyme? And I also have, if I could, for the first time, I would like to do a oh yeah.
Okay.
Jameis Winston. Man, somebody need to give that boy a job.
I'm saying.
He was the highlight of New Orleans and Super Bowl. Everywhere he went, he made it a party. And when he was at the Jazz Club with the cowbell, I just had a reminiscence of the Saturday Night Live skit, We Need More Cowbell. Thank you, gentlemen.
Have you seen him with the band?
No,
on the cowbell? He's got it down to a science. Jameis was the best part of the Super Bowl.
He's campaigning, too. That clip came out of him talking to Burt Kreischer, comedian Burt Kreischer, in the stands. I saw some Titans fan Twitter account put it out there. Jameis says he wants to go to Nashville.
Jameis wants a job.
And it's just a video of Burt asking him where he wants to play. Oh, man, I'd love to live in Dallas, you know. And now L.A. would be cool. New York, I like New York. Nashville's a cool. He just names every city in the NFL.
City.
Just wants a job, man.
Incredible.
I respect it.
Dan Orlovsky has no interest in seasoning.
Yeah, famously.
It's like he has the taste, and he'll acknowledge this. He has the taste buds of a toddler. He does not want seasoned food. It's Corey, right? Dan Orlovsky's food choices. The fact that you can't even embrace New Orleans food.
Yeah. Frog legs. I love frog legs.
It's been a long time since I've had them. I don't remember having an issue with frog legs, but like a po' boy. Like, is a po' boy too much seasoned food for you? A little Cajun seasoning on the po' boy?
It reminds me of you, quite honestly.
I don't eat like that at all. What are you
No,
talking
exactly.
about?
It's the opposite. You see somebody eat a chicken wing and you're just disgusted. How could they eat that? That is so disgusting.
Again, you project my reaction to watching you eat onto how I view everybody else eating. Watching you eat is disgusting.
I don't see it. Yeah, give it to Corey.
Congratulations to Corey. Coming up next, the number one overall quarterbacks in history and what the hit rate actually is. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:02. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. With Super Bowl 59 in the books, the NFL season is officially over, and the final head coaching vacancy in the NFL is about to officially be sealed. As multiple reports from NFL Network are saying the deal is agreed to and done, Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore is the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. The Eagles offense put up 55 points in the NFC Championship win over Washington before hanging 40 on the Chiefs in their Super Bowl 59 victory. College hoops action tonight. Number 5 Tennessee travels to Lexington to visit 15th ranked Kentucky. The Vols looking to avenge a loss to the Wildcats 2 weeks ago in Knoxville. Tip-off at 6 p.m. Vol Network coverage begins at 5:30 tonight on The Zone. And Vanderbilt remains at home looking to knock off number 1 Auburn. That's also a 6 p.m. tip tonight at Memorial Gym. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
With the number 1 overall pick, are the Tennessee Titans going to pick or are they going to trade? That's the conversation that's being had right now. We talked about, I don't even want to call it a report, and that's not to take anything away from Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, but it was more an update than it was actual new information here put out in the last couple of days about the Titans basically being open-minded for the number 1 overall pick, which is not something that you needed additional information on because they said as much when they gave their introductory press conferences with Mike Borgonzi, the new general manager, and Chad Brinker, the president of football operations. Here's what we know about the Titans and the quarterbacks, okay? If there was a quarterback that was definitively the number 1 overall pick, we would not be talking about any conversation around Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter or even a differentiation between Shador and Cam Ward, however you would stack those two players, however these teams would stack those two players. If there was a clear and obvious number 1 overall pick at quarterback, the entire league would know it by now, even though it's still early in the process. We agree?
We would have largely known by the end of the college football season, right?
Yes.
If it was an overwhelming consensus.
Brian Callahan said as much at the Senior Bowl when he's asked a question about the process of drafting Joe Burrow, number 1 overall. And, not to use his exact phrasing, and Jackson, we may even have that clip. In fact, let's hear from Brian Callahan at the Senior Bowl about the differences between drafting Joe Burrow in 2020 and this time around.
It's hard to articulate, to be honest. You get to a certain point where you feel very comfortable with all the work you've done, and that's really for every draft pick. But it's hard to pinpoint the moment. It's just sort of accumulation of work and sort of unturning every stone you unturn, and you hope to find the information you need. Sometimes you don't always, and there's a little bit of faith in it too, that you're doing the right thing at the right time. But it's mostly just the totality of the work. It takes months between now and the actual time to pick. Unless there's a scenario, again, like in Cincinnati, we knew we were going to take Joe Burrow pretty early. That's a little bit different story. That's not what this draft is right now for us. And there's a lot of possibilities where we sit, a lot of good players. And we're going to have to do a work on all of them. Really, every scenario is potentially on the table. And when we get to that point, we'll know it, but it does take a lot of work to get there.
So Brian Callahan acknowledging, that this draft is not Joe Burrow's draft. We all knew that Joe Burrow was going to go number 1 overall. Even think about Trevor Lawrence would have been, 21? That was the Trevor Lawrence draft?
That was the 2021 draft, yeah.
Everybody knew Trevor Lawrence was going to go number 1 overall. Everybody even knew that Zach Wilson was going to go number 2 overall. There was not conversation around those 2 picks. It became, all right, what happens at 3? It doesn't mean that these 2 quarterbacks can't be successful. It definitely means that you do not have to expend, and that it's going to be an interesting thing to see who expends the number 1 overall pick on either of these players, if there's even a conversation about either of those players, if it's just Cam Ward or nothing.
What are you looking for in a quarterback drafted with the number 1 overall pick? Like, what is the baseline expectation for that player?
For an organization or for a fan base?
For an organization.
Most organizations, not most, every organization that takes a quarterback number 1 overall plans to start them sooner rather than later, and to do everything in service of them, that player is going to be able to immediately help you in some form or fashion. It's basically the expectation of any player picked, I would argue, in the top 10.
Yeah, bare minimum, make it to a second contract, right? Be the front-facing figure in your pursuit of a championship. That's what you want out of a number 1 overall pick at the quarterback position. So I collected the last 15 quarterbacks taken, number 1 overall. I'm going to throw names at you. You tell me hit, miss, or undecided. H, M, or U, okay? 2024, Caleb Williams to the Bears.
Undecided.
Bryce Young, Panthers.
Undecided.
Trevor Lawrence.
Undecided.
Right now, closer to miss than in terms of what you look for out of a number 1 overall pick. But yes, undecided.
Definitely disappointed. I have not left Trevor Lawrence for dead.
Burrow.
Hit.
Kyler Murray. That's a hard one.
Undecided.
Undecided because you don't know, or undecided because the story's not totally written on Kyler?
I don't think the story's totally written on Kyler. I just think their roster construction has been kind of wonky while he's been there, and he's a very specific type of player. Like, I don't think all right, let me say this. I think that Kyler Murray is capable of being a starting NFL quarterback. Is that the bar, or are we talking about...
I don't think that's the bar for your number 1 overall pick.
Right.
I think it has to be higher than baseline starter that can maybe get you into the playoffs.
But by that logic,
be higher than that.
By that logic, and I think that Kyler Murray is a baseline starter that can probably get you into the playoffs. But I think there's a lot more things around Kyler Murray that have to be right.
But he's played in 1 playoff game so far in his career since being drafted. Played in 1. He has the opportunity to change it, and the story's not written on him. But for me, it's closer to miss than undecided.
Oh, see,
Again, it's
I don't
such a
think I
high
can call
bar.
Kyler Murray
It's not. It doesn't mean he's a bust. It doesn't mean he's a bust. He's not a bust. But in terms of what you want out of your number 1 overall draft pick.
Yeah, and he was drafted for a specific coach at the time. Like, okay, I'll hear you out on that.
Baker Mayfield, 2018.
Hit.
Miss. The Cleveland Browns couldn't do anything with Baker. He's had a nice resurgence.
Oh, no. Now, by that standard.
I think you have to take into account, did it work out for the team that drafted him?
Okay, that's not what you're asking. That's not what you initially set out to ask me. You set out to ask me about whether these players hit. Baker Mayfield is a hit.
Okay. We can do it based on the player. Jared Goff.
Hit.
Jameis. Miss. It's a miss. He's a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck.
Hit, but for how it ended, I'm sure there'd be some Colts fans that would argue miss.
Yeah, but the caliber player he was, it's a hit. He's everything you want.
He was in the playoffs
in a number 1 overall pick.
He was the thing that dragged them across the finish line more often than not. He had an undefeated record against this particular franchise his entire NFL career.
Cam Newton.
Hit.
Sam Bradford. Miss, yeah. Matt Stafford.
Hit.
Jamarcus Russell. Miss. Alex Smith.
Hit.
And Eli Manning.
Hit.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hits. So just over 50%, we're saying, without question, were worthy of the number 1 overall pick at the quarterback position in the last 15, not last 15 years, but the last 15 quarterbacks to be selected number 1 overall.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. Yeah, it's a coin flip. Like, it's a legitimate coin flip. When you take, because you have all of those different players have all manner, each one of them has different context surrounding them. There is no one scenario that you feel like is similar between any of the players that you named. So the context is critical to whether they end up succeeding or not, regardless of what their talent. There's no disputing that all of these players were talented players coming out of college. You could talk about, well, was Baker Mayfield really worthy of the number 1 overall draft pick given the draft that he came out in? or Kyler Murray at the time, opportunity cost versus other players who may be greater at what it is that they do, it's still the most important position. And all of those players were exceedingly talented coming out of their college football experiences. Do you, like, relative to the quarterbacks that we're talking about now, let's just take Baker Mayfield as an example. Baker a more successful college quarterback than Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward?
Oh, yeah, unquestionably.
Kyler Murray?
Yes. He won the Heisman Trophy. Won a conference championship.
Trevor Lawrence won championships. Did he win multiple or just the one?
I think Trevor just had the one. Deshaun Watson had another one. And because Trevor lost to Justin Fields and Ohio State.
Maybe the better way to do this exercise is this.
No. Trevor beat Ohio State. Excuse me.
Relative to the list of quarterbacks that have been selected number one overall that you just read in the last 15 years, essentially, how many of them do Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders have better resumes than collegiate resumes?
Of the guys that we've named?
Of the guys that you named that are number one overall draft picks.
Jared Goff. I think we'd have to go back and look at Goff's best record with Cal. I would say that's an interesting question. Because they did not have a better collegiate career than Caleb Williams, than Bryce Young, than Trevor Lawrence, than Joe Burrow, than Kyler Murray, than Baker Mayfield, or Jameis Winston, or Andrew Luck, or Cam Newton, or Sam Bradford, or Matt Stafford.
Right, that's kind of the direction that I'm heading in.
But Stafford was a far better prospect.
Because it is about what kind of prospects are they, but it's also like, what have they proven as collegiate players versus the kind of resumes that they're up against? And are they comparable? It doesn't sound like they're comparable.
Man, Goff had some crazy numbers at Cal that last year. 43 touchdowns to 13 picks, over 4,700 yards, completed nearly 65% of his passes.
So, and Goff has been to a Super Bowl. Goff has competed at the highest level, even if he came up short in his appearance with the Los Angeles Rams. So it doesn't mean that Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders can't have success, but they are more dependent on where they land than a lot of the players that we're talking about here. And even those players that we're talking about here all needed specific situations to be able to succeed or fail. 615-737-1045 is the number. We can take your phone calls on this because we've got a few to get to. Lucas also has NFL headlines. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. There are a lot of success stories when it comes to ED treatment. And a lot of those success stories, most of those success stories here locally come from the Tennessee Men's Clinic because they specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do. A lot of guys go through this. As you get up there in age, your body starts to change. You may start taking pills, but over the course of time, the pills may stop working. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about ED treatment, and the Tennessee Men's Clinic can debunk those for you. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is there to help you because you don't want to trust your health to an online pharmacy, and you don't want to feel like you're out of options. Their protocols are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone, ED, treatments that increase size, stamina, and everything else in between. The bottom line is no one has more expertise and experience in successfully treating men's sexual health issues than the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and they're passionate about what they do. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them 615-208-9090. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. So somebody in the chat, we were talking quarterbacks. We expect to talk quarterbacks a great deal, only for the Titans to probably not draft one. Doesn't it feel like we're trending that way? We spent a lot of time talking about the quarterbacks. Free agency could change some of that. Certainly could inform a good deal of how they might approach this coming April's NFL draft. But in the meantime, quarterback is going to be the most interesting subject. Quarterback is the thing that you most want to hear about. Doesn't mean that it's got the highest percentage chance to happen just because there's a need there, and there's a couple of them in the draft. But Agent S. on YouTube, based off our discussion of Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders' collegiate resumes versus other players that have gone as the number one overall draft picks. He says, didn't Cam Ward set the record for most touchdowns? So the record that Cam Ward did break this year is the most career touchdowns in Division I. He broke Case Keenum's record. He has 178 career touchdowns. But there's some important context to note about those touchdowns, Lucas.
So 70 of them were from his time at Incarnate Word, the passing touchdowns.
Right.
He had 24 passing touchdowns in 2020 and had 47 in 2021. And Incarnate Word is indeed a Division I program. So that helped them significantly get past Case Keenum's career record.
Doesn't mean that he didn't excel in the ACC. And across the course of his time, he's transferred a couple of times en route to being the Miami quarterback in his final collegiate season of eligibility. But I do think that the Incarnate Word, I don't want to call it, stat sheet stuffing, but it does feel a little bit.
A little bit.
Because how long was he in college football relative to Case Keenum?
Relative to Keenum, Cam Ward wasn't one of these 6-year guys. I mean, he had 5 years as a starting quarterback. Keenum in Houston, I would imagine, started for 3 or 4. Wow, Keenum actually had an even longer career.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Keenum got, in 2006, he redshirted, and his last year of college football is 2011.
That's crazy.
So Keenum played the same amount of seasons, but was actually in college longer.
Yeah.
He was in college for 6 years. Okay, I did not think that was going to be the case.
Agent S. says, so he's being criticized because teams missed on him out of the gate, like programs, recruiting.
Well, the high school that Cam Ward came out of, he didn't throw the football. That was the thing with him coming out of high school, as a 0-star recruit, right? I can't remember if it was the triple option they ran or whatever it was. They ran a wing T offense. That's what it was in West Columbia, Texas. So crazy productive, yes, but that was his only offer.
Yeah, it
was Incarnate Word.
It wasn't about, you didn't have the tape to evaluate him as a passer. What he did at Incarnate Word allowed you to project out to what he might do at Washington State and then what he might do at Miami on after that.
And all he did was ascend. I mean, credit to him. He moved, every time Cam Ward moved up a level, his play improved. He got better year to year at Washington State. Then he made the leap to the ACC in Miami and had a phenomenal season with Miami. And you could talk about strength of schedule, and you could talk about their defense being a thing that let them down and kept them out of the playoff.
He digged them out of those defensive issues
multiple times.
A lot this season.
Yeah, for sure. No, it is not to take anything away from Cam Ward. All he did was step up to the plate whenever the level increased, which bodes well for a guy making the leap to the NFL.
Well, this is what I think, because I understand why people get, I won't call it hypersensitive, but get a little sensitive about criticism of draft prospects. You have to understand, at the core of this, it's not about how many reasons does this player give you to draft them. It's more about, it is to an extent about that, but it's more about how many reasons does this player give you to not draft them with the number 1 overall pick. I understand that it's negging to an extent and that people don't like that. Well, why are you criticizing Cam Ward all the time? Why are you criticizing Shedeur Sanders all the time? Why are you criticizing Travis Hunter or any of these players? It's an annual thing. It's just a part of how teams evaluate. What can they do? How versatile are they within what we're trying to operate? And what reasons, how many cons do they have versus their pros? The cons come up a lot. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Speaking of draft evaluation, Combine is right around the corner. Show's going to be up there. We're very excited about it. We are planning a lot of really special shows that we're looking forward to, and obviously this is a huge draft for the Titans. Potentially they'll still have the number 1 overall draft pick. Potentially there will be news about movement around the number 1 overall draft pick in Indianapolis. We'll be up there Tuesday through Friday, and we're really excited to bring you guys along with us. So you can look forward to that at the end of the month. Let's go to Cameron up next. Hey, Cameron.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are y'all?
Good.
So I had a question. I just want to run a hypothetical. So if the Titans take the number 1 draft pick and they trade it to the Browns and they move up, can they then trade the number 2 pick to the Giants with them obviously needing a quarterback? That's all I got. It's going to hang up listening to you guys. Thanks.
Like, can they trade back twice is what he's asking. Like, if they move back to 2 with the Browns, can then they trade out of 2?
Yeah.
And trade? I mean, there's nothing to stop them.
Rack up that capital.
Sure. That's absolutely a possibility. And there's nothing that dictates. I mean, are we all assuming that Cleveland is going to take a quarterback?
That's not what the mock draft we're going to discuss in the noon hour says, but I think most people are under that assumption.
And it's a reasonable conclusion to draw, but it is an assumption. We are assuming that Cleveland is a lock for a quarterback because Deshaun Watson's contract is hideous. They have to find a cost-effective solution. Speaking of assumptions, I'm assuming that Deshaun Watson has played his last snap for the Browns.
Yeah, he also just tore his Achilles.
No, I know. So. But that's a part of why I'm assuming that Deshaun Watson has played his last snap for the Browns. He's torn his Achilles twice, like re-injured the Achilles. How this draft plays out is going to be a fascination because of the quarterbacks. You hear Max use this phrase all the time. There's the quarterback draft, and then there's everything else. How much leverage does the quarterback draft actually have here to dictate the rest of the draft? We have no idea. We have no idea at this point in time. All we know definitively is that there is no consensus number 1 overall pick this year, regardless of position. That's the thing that we most definitively know on February the 11th. And that whether it ends up being a quarterback or a pass rusher or Travis Hunter, any of these players, that there's no consensus right now, where in years there very much has been. Like in years past, there very much has been. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, we all knew all the way through. Basically from the time that he became a starter at Clemson. Yeah, that guy's a future number 1 overall draft pick. Joe Burrow wasn't quite as much of a lock because he wasn't spectacular in his first year at LSU. And then all of a sudden, he very much was spectacular and put together one of the best college football seasons we've ever seen on an undefeated national championship team.
Beat Trevor Lawrence in that game.
Thomas is up next. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Good.
Hey, I want to ask you a question about Will Levis. I'm not looking at him as basically a starter. Do you think he would be like a Josh Dobbs, a good backup for a team, or do you put him as maybe a couple years down the road, a little bust, someone like Jamarcus Russell or something like that, or do you just give him the benefit of the doubt? Think he'll just be a good backup, or maybe he will work himself up to be a starter somewhere, even if it's not for Tennessee?
Thanks for the call. I truly have no idea what's going to happen with Will Levis. Because, like, the thing that's the most unknown about Will Levis is how he handles situational stuff, where he was a disaster this year in a great many situations. Like, can you work him out of that funk?
The backup quarterback in the NFL is supposed to be a safety net. Right now,
that guy's not.
Will Levis is anything but a safety net. So it will be very interesting to see where he goes from here.
The other part of that for Will Levis, like, you had this conversation while I was out last week, but he said Will Levis as a bust like Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell was the number 1 overall pick. Even if Will Levis doesn't pan out as a second-round pick, he's not a bust. To me, I am in agreement with Ian Rappaport that the position and the place where the Titans ended up drafting Will Levis, I'm good with that.
I'm not, because of Rappaport's reasoning with 3HL, which you can go back and watch if you missed that conversation on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube page. His reasoning was low risk, high reward.
Which is how the team justified it.
Right, because Rap Sheet, here was Rap Sheet's justification. All right, you just lose a second-round pick. Well, no, you also lost a third-round pick because you traded up for him. Mm-hmm. You didn't really spend any money on him. Well, you did. You spent a lot of money to support him when you put the chips in on him going into the 2024 season. I take all of that stuff into account. So that's why I thought I understand what he was saying in principle. Like that, it makes sense.
It's not. So I guess
there's just so much missing context.
Maybe the way that he should have said it is the idea of Will Levis was not a bad idea.
And maybe you evaluate that thing in two different veins, right? There is the decision to draft him, and then the decision to hand him the keys, make him your starter, despite him not necessarily proving that on the field.
Sure, but that's a different level of it. Like, at the time that Will Levis was drafted, was it a bad idea? There will be some Tennessee fans that argue yes.
Right.
Did you watch him? There will be some plenty of college football analysts that will tell you, yeah, I knew that wasn't going to work.
Was it a good or bad process, right? And if you didn't like Will Levis coming out, then you thought it was a bad process because you thought, no, I don't think he's a good football player, so I don't think it's a good pick. But if you thought he was a good prospect, then it's unquestionably a good draft pick.
You can't do it quite this way, but this is the way, at least that I'm thinking about it. Like, let's take his name off of it. Let's say there's a talented quarterback with first-round traits that falls to the second round. Don't use a name. If you trade away a third-round pick to move up in the second round to draft quarterback X that has first-round traits, like many people regarded Will Levis as having, is that worth the opportunity cost? The vast majority of people would argue yes. But you can't have the conversation that way because Will Levis is a very specific player with a very specific resume and somebody who was questioned a great deal coming out of that process.
It's an impossible argument to reach a consensus on one way or the other because everybody has different parameters of it in their head, right? What do you mean, was he a good draft pick? No, we saw him as a starting quarterback. It was a disaster, and now they're in an even deeper hole at the position. Of course it wasn't a good draft pick, but that's not necessarily the conversation Rap Sheet was having. And I thought there was some missing context there in terms of what they gave up to get him and what they spent around him. So it's something you could argue both ways all day.
The other part of this is a comment that I see on YouTube from Kent, who says they didn't go all in. You spent money to support a quarterback, not just Levis. The quarterback was Levis. The other quarterback was on a one-year deal. The third quarterback you couldn't wait to get rid of. Whether you were right or wrong about not being able to wait to get rid of Malik Willis, even though you waited till the end of training camp, can be debated after the fact. But you very much specifically built a roster around Will Levis because he was the only viable quarterback at the time.
And many of those players will still be around to help whatever quarterback is starting for the Titans. Tony Pollard will be here, Calvin Ridley, Lloyd Cushenberry when he's healthy. But yes, there's no question. 2024 was with the mindset of let's make it to where we can find out what we have in this guy as soon as humanly possible. And they did.
Duck Falling on YouTube says Will Levis will have all 4 years, basically saying he'll get all 4 years of an opportunity, whether that's here or elsewhere. Or no, actually, he's adding that they're not moving on from him. He's speaking in definitives, even though I don't think there's anything definitive about that. He's saying they won't move on from him like they did Malik Willis. Quarterbacks like Levis will have infinite chances to succeed. Or maybe the better way to phrase it is infinite opportunities. Because he is a talented player, right? This was your Caleb Farley argument. And I know Caleb's a first-round pick and Will Levis is the top of the second round, but still, it's a quarterback. I think there are more parallels there.
A later first-round corner versus top of the second-round quarterback.
I think they're kind of comparable for what the exercise is. The exercise is, will other teams take a chance on Levis? Because there is a great deal of, I can work with him, I can fix him in the NFL. And versus Malik, who did get another opportunity.
I was going to say, Malik has continued to get opportunities, and he took it and ran with it last season.
But I think what that comment specifically implies is the Titans won't give up on him, and I would argue that they did. They did in the season. They gave up on him. And Malik was also given up on in the season when they brought Dobbs in. That was an admission of, no, we can't do this any longer. With what it looks like right now, we can't do this anymore. We have to get somebody who's at least played in games at a reasonably high level. Kevin is next. Hey, Kevin.
Quick question, guys. So if the quarterback is the need of the team, then why wouldn't you just take the best quarterback in the draft and gamble on the one pick versus trading back to acquire more picks, and then you gambling at more picks? Because the Titans' track record has not been good over the past 4 years with draft picks. Now, granted, you have a new regime, but this still goes through two GMs and two head coaches of just bad picks. Now, you might have a couple of picks in there like Sweat and then the cornerback from Louisville last year.
Well, Latham. I don't think Latham's bad.
Yeah, Latham, he did good. But other than that, the rest of them hadn't been that helpful. Listen, you guys have a good day.
Thanks for the call, Kevin. You too.
I feel like you're arguing against yourself there.
Kind of.
Right? If you're saying, well, they're not drafting well, why do you want more picks? Because of that. You
more
want
swings.
More bites at the apple.
More swings. You're
bound to land some good players
all
the more
over
picks you got.
You're just trying to increase your percentage chance of hit. You know, that's all it is. That is the greatest argument. That's the most foolproof argument. More picks, more opportunities, less misses. Now, you can be John Robinson, like I mentioned yesterday. John had 11 top 100 picks, the kind of stuff that Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker are aspiring to. They said 12 top 100 picks over the next 3 years and talked about it as an aspirational goal. John basically had that the last 3 drafts and botched it. There's no foolproof way to do this. There's no exact science that is player evaluation. I would argue it's harder at the NFL level than it is in any other major sport. I couldn't speak for soccer. But football, there is so much variance, so much specific to geography, where these players land, who they land with, what the level of patience is, what the ownership situation is like, that dictates whether these guys fail or succeed relative to expectation. You're just trying to give yourself the most opportunity to land the most amount of contributing players. And I get why quarterback supersedes that, but this Super Bowl just showed you that the best quarterback doesn't always win. And Jalen Hurts, by the way, was the better quarterback on Sunday night.
And 2 years ago.
And arguably, Jalen Hurts, he was not that impressive in the regular season, even though they rolled, largely due to Saquon Barkley's excellence. But Jalen Hurts was a complimentary piece. Jalen Hurts wasn't excellent through the regular season. He had a really nice postseason. Mahomes is largely, though, regarded as the better quarterback. The better quarterback across their career didn't win on Sunday. The better team won. The better team went out there and kicked the other team's ass. And that's kind of the thing that you're aspiring to, assuming that you can't just land one of these shooting stars at the quarterback position each and every year. 615-737-1045. Speaking of Mahomes, is he getting enough criticism? We'll talk about it next.
You know I won the big game watch party on Sunday by bringing a bucket of Hattie B's jumbo wings. It killed and even had some leftovers to bring home, which always delivers. Hattie B's, 7 locations, the factory at Franklin, Lower Broadway, Melrose, Midtown, Nashville West, even the Nashville Airport and Nissan Stadium. During Titans game days, open daily at 11 a.m., except for the factory at Franklin location, which is open at 7 a.m., for breakfast. That's right. Hattie B's doing breakfast in Franklin. You've got to try it out. A family-run restaurant serving up your favorite Southern food and authentic Nashville hot chicken. They hand-bread their fried chicken, cooked to order. Add your spice level, hot or not, with your favorite piece of chicken, and you know they have the best sides in town. The Southern greens, the pimento mac and cheese, my personal favorite. If you download the Hattie B's app today, you get a free dessert just by doing so. If you want to skip the line, be sure to download the app or go to HattieB.com.
Welcome back to the show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken, the best hot chicken in the world, not just in Middle Tennessee. I was having some conversations with a friend of mine that works for The Ringer, lives in Vegas now. He was very complimentary of the Hattie B's in Las Vegas. Said, if you need a chicken hookup, I got you.
All these places across the country and even across the world are trying to incorporate like Nashville hot flavors into stuff. Like, love Whataburger, but Whataburger, I don't want the Nashville hot like chicken nuggets or whatever you're trying to do with the Nashville hot sauce. Like, just go to Hattie B's.
615-737-1045 is the number. We're going to talk about Mahomes because I don't think he's been criticized the way that a player who performs in a Super Bowl normally gets criticized. We'll take your phone calls, though, here in just a second. We were just discussing the Titans, the path, the quarterback, all these different things that we're going to talk about basically until the draft. Landon is next.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
I was calling because I was curious about, Will Levis. Essentially, he was a first-round pick because there was only 31 picks in that first round that year. And also in the NFL, more often than not, I think organizations fail young quarterbacks than quarterbacks are bust. It's atmosphere. It's everywhere around you. I mean, you look at Vince Young and Steve McNair. You leave Steve McNair there for 2 years and let Vince sit, we might have a whole different franchise. Thanks for the time, guys. Love y'all show.
Appreciate the call. Levis was 33rd. He's right, because who didn't have a first-round pick? Was that somebody lose a first-round pick to a fine or something like that? I can't remember what happened.
Dolphins?
Was it the Dolphins? Was it the Tom Brady thing?
Yeah.
Again, one of the wildest. You guys, you want to talk about conspiracy theories? That Tom Brady, Sean Payton, Miami Dolphins thing was the stuff of your wildest imaginations, and it just kind of faded because the league nixed it. It never happened, and the Dolphins lost a first-round pick for tampering. Crazy stuff. But
yeah,
still.
they would have had the. It would have been like in that 20, right at 20-21 range.
So I mean, Levis is still a second-round pick because there was, I can't remember who the 32nd pick was, who the first pick in the second round was.
It was Joey Porter Jr.
Okay.
To Pittsburgh.
So, yeah, I get what you're saying because it's like Dodd. Kevin Dodd was the 33rd pick, right? Some people try to say, oh, he's basically a first-round pick. Well, he's not. He's the first pick in the second round, but I get your point. We have talked many times about that exact same phrase that he just said, that organizations fail players far more often than players bust out on organizations. There's no disputing that, but that's not necessarily changing. Like, that's just kind of what the NFL cycle is. You hope that teams gain more nuance. You hope that teams take more patient approaches, specifically with the quarterback position. We've talked about sitting guys, but it almost never happens. A conversation for another day, Lucas, based on the first round picks, the number one overall picks at quarterback that we talked about earlier. How many of them started right away versus how many of them got the opportunity to sit?
Oh, of these 15?
Yeah, which we'll do later in the week, maybe.
Yeah, most of them started right away.
Now, Patrick Mahomes was not a number one overall pick, but he was afforded the opportunity to sit. And Andy Reid has talked about how beneficial that was. Mike Borgonzi has talked about how beneficial that was, given his time with the Chiefs across 16 years. And Mahomes has spoken about how much he appreciates Alex Smith, the guidance that Alex Smith was able to offer him, speaking of former number one overall picks. But Mahomes, coming out of the Super Bowl, it's the worst Patrick Mahomes game I've ever seen. And I've covered what would also be considered the worst Patrick Mahomes game of his career, which was a 27-3 loss here in Nashville to the Tennessee Titans, where they just didn't have anything going. Now, they ended up righting the ship later on that season, and that was a particularly bad Mahomes game, and it was a particularly bad offensive line game for Kansas City when they came to Nashville. I want to say that was, 21? The 2021 season?
Yeah, Adam Humphries touchdown.
No, Adam Humphries wouldn't have been on the roster, and that would have been 19. You're thinking of the game where David Long forced the fumble, Rashawn Evans scooping score.
Electric game.
Tannehill in the back of the end zone.
Yeah. That was 19.
Yeah. But the 27-3 game was an ass-kicking. Kansas City came in here. They were reeling a little bit, and the Titans demolished them. It was something that, you very rarely see. And then you saw it again in the Super Bowl from Pat, specifically. has he bought himself enough benefit of the doubt? Nobody's disputing that Patrick Mahomes is not on a Hall of Fame track. He has won multiple Super Bowls at this point in time. He's won 2 back-to-back. He's got 3 overall. He's not Brady as far as the resume. We understand this. He's not the greatest of all time. We understand this. But he's coming off a game where he was particularly awful and a season where he wasn't great. He loses 40-22 against the Philadelphia Eagles. He completes 21 of 32 for 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. That's a faulty stat line because that's not what that game was. That game was garbage time touchdowns at the end of the game to Xavier Worthy and DeAndre Hopkins when the Eagles had basically, they were comfortable. They were cruising. They were playing prevent defense the rest of the way through. He got sacked 6 times. He ended up with a quarterback rating of 11.4. Is there the same kind of energy around Patrick Mahomes, the same kind of criticism there was around Patrick Mahomes as there would be any other quarterback who performed that poorly in a Super Bowl loss who has the resume that Mahomes does? If Brady never had a performance, even in a loss in a Super Bowl like that. He went out guns blazing against Nick Foles. He lost, but he went out slinging. Eli Manning, the 2 times that the Giants beat the Patriots in those games, it wasn't a Brady performance that necessarily cost them. It was that New York's front was overwhelming, kind of the same way that Mahomes lost his 2 Super Bowls.
But Brady also, especially early in his career, had multiple Super Bowls where he did not carry the team to the ring.
Correct.
Right? Especially
I would argue the first
on.
3.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly not the Rams. Certainly not the first one.
Whereas Mahomes had MVP seasons that powered the Chiefs to multiple Super Bowls. I mean, his stats took a major drop-off, major dive, obviously after Tyreek Hill left. It is crazy looking at just year to year. It's easy to overlook because the Chiefs just kept continuing to win and evolved and found different ways to win, and the defense continued to take steps as an elite defense that powered them to championships. But 2022, Pat Mahomes threw for 5,250 yards, 41 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, to 2023, where he had over 1,000 less passing yards, went from 41 touchdowns to 27 touchdowns, upped his number of interceptions by 2, and then took a further step down in total yards, passing yards in 2024. This was his first season, apart from his rookie year, where he wasn't the starter, with under 4,000 passing yards.
They had 3,928, so he's just shy, but it's 26 touchdowns to 11 picks, and an offense that was not explosive. Now, we understand the context around Mahomes is that his skill position players have significantly dropped off. He doesn't have a Tyreek Hill anymore. He's got DeAndre Hopkins at the end of his career. He's got a promising rookie in Xavier Worthy, but not a consistent down-in, down-out playmaker. And he's got Travis Kelce at the end of his career. It's not the same core. It's not the same caliber of skill players that he had at the start of this run, and that's something that he's expected to make up for. He did not make up for it in that game. I think the 2 people who hurt themselves the most coming out of that Super Bowl are Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Because Patrick Mahomes is not unstoppable. It just feels like that sometimes. The Chiefs have had a reign of terror over the NFL that feels unending, except the Eagles just ended it and ended it decisively. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes did not do the thing that you expect them to do week in and week out. And it doesn't mean that they can't have a bad game and that they can't respond. Patrick Mahomes is still a player under 30 years old. If I'm not mistaken, he's 28, 29 at this point in time. Still, to me, an ascending player. I just thought the commentary at that Super Bowl was very generous. And maybe the 3 Super Bowls earn you the benefit of the doubt. But honestly, I think that a 3-time Super Bowl champion should be held to a higher standard, the both of them, in Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And I thought they both got off pretty easy.
Sure.
Like, the loss is brutal. Nobody, I mean, it was over at half. So maybe it's just kind of like, okay, there's nothing that they're going to be able to do here. It's just not the Chiefs' day. And teams can have moments like that. But that team doesn't really.
Yeah, but it's human nature for me to say, yeah, all right, well, you've won the last 2. Sure, that leans into you being held to a higher standard, but also, I don't think anything less of Patrick Mahomes than Andy Reid after that Super Bowl. Not one iota.
That's an interesting question. Because I don't feel strongly about that, but it's rare that the two of them leave me disappointed. And that is a different feeling that I'm accustomed to.
You could be left disappointed.
Without
I wanted a good game. We didn't get a good game.
It does not change their resumes, but my most recent impression of the two of them is, you couldn't figure it out. You got beat, and you got beat badly.
I mean, what have you done for me lately, I guess?
For sure. That's what it is. 615-737-1045 is the number. We'll got more of your phone calls to take. We'll also talk about the latest mock draft. The Titans, who are they taking on ESPN? It's not a quarterback. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The NFL coaching cycle is complete as the New Orleans Saints, according to multiple reports, are finalizing the deal to hire Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore to replace Dennis Allen as the next head coach in New Orleans. Moore helped lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl win as the offensive play caller. Before that was in Dallas, where he played after being drafted out of Boise State. College hoops action tonight. Number 5 Tennessee travels to Lexington to visit 15th-ranked Kentucky. The Vols look to avenge a loss to the Wildcats 2 weeks ago in Knoxville. Tip-off at 6 p.m. Vol Network coverage begins at 5:30 tonight on The Zone. And Vanderbilt remains at home looking to knock off number 1 Auburn. That is also a 6 p.m. tip at Memorial Gym. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
So what, we just giving up on Mock Draft Monday? No Mock Draft Monday? We got to make it Mock Draft Tuesday from here on out? We've only done the mock draft stuff on Tuesdays.
I mean, things are happening. Super Bowl just happened. Like what you want to go ahead and nix a Super Bowl reaction segment to do Mock Draft Monday? We got to drag this stuff out, buddy.
I would have done it just to bother you.
Why would that bother me?
Because you famously hate this.
I hate Mock Draft Monday when it's October, not when it's draft season.
Don't yell at me about that. Yell at them about that. They were the 3-14 football team.
The season
I didn't
is
want to
over.
do mock draft stuff in October. They made us.
We are in the pre-draft process. The Senior Bowl has already happened. Now is the time to be talking mock drafts, and I'm excited about it. But yeah, in October, miss me with Mock Draft Monday.
Lie
about what?
He's not excited about Mock Draft Monday. He's not excited about Mock Draft Tuesday. He's not excited about mock drafts. Lie.
Lie. You misconstrue my disdain for draft talk in the middle of a football season for disdain for draft talk in general. I love draft talk during draft season, which is where we are.
That's not what you say.
So, there are mock drafts. They are out there. They are going to be the subject of much debate, much discussion, and there are some that are more valid than others. Field Yates does a valid mock draft. You know why? Because Field Yates used to work in the NFL. Field Yates talks to NFL people. He has connections and sources throughout the league. This is not just his guess at how this thing is going to play out. He's getting insight. He's using it to formulate a mock draft, and his mock draft produces those results on a regular basis. I don't think he's doing one on a weekly basis, but I know he does one on a somewhat regular basis with Mel Kiper, who is also producing those things for ESPN. So when Field Yates' mock draft went out today, and I saw Travis Hunter as the number 1 overall pick to the Tennessee Titans, I was intrigued. Field Yates gave an explanation as to why Travis Hunter was his selection for the Tennessee Titans. This is courtesy of ESPN.
And let's start with Travis Hunter, the wide receiver or cornerback from Colorado. You take your pick. It's the versatility, though, that separates him from the rest of the pack. This guy has the ability to become an all-pro level wide receiver or all-pro level cornerback. Yes, we have never seen it at the NFL. We have not seen a player go both ways in a full-time capacity. Do I expect it? I'm not sure. But do I think he's capable of at least playing some snaps on both sides of the ball? That much is for sure. And for as good of a football player as he is, his football character matches it. This is a rare individual who would land in Tennessee. Cleveland is up next, and as you know, Myles Garrett wants out. Whether he stays or whether he goes, Abdul Carter, to me, along with Travis Hunter, is in a tier of the top 2 players in this entire class. He had a wonderful season this past year, 12 sacks. He was at his best when it mattered the most. He was dominant during Penn State's run in the college football playoff. This guy has the best first step quickness in a very deep edge class this year. He had 12 sacks this past year. That seems like what he could be doing at a regular basis in the NFL. And finally, everybody's always wondering about quarterbacks. I have Cam Ward from Miami going first to the Giants, number 3 overall, the most dynamic quarterback in this year's draft class, led all quarterbacks in terms of passing touchdowns in the FBS last season. He's an innovator as well. He goes to the Giants, who, of course, desperately need a quarterback. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders lands with the Raiders. Of course, we know he already has a relationship with Tom Brady. A lot of respect there, but it goes way beyond that for the Raiders in making this selection. Shedeur Sanders, the best pocket passer in this year's draft class. Ball placement, accuracy, seeing the field and knowing where to throw the football to his receivers.
That is Field Yates of ESPN. So he's got Travis Hunter, first overall to the Titans. Abdul Carter, second to the Browns. The first quarterback comes off the board to the New York Giants at 3. And Shedeur Sanders at 6 to the Raiders. Now, this mock draft does not have trades involved, and it's very likely that there is some movement beyond just teams picking where they're expected to pick or where they're currently slated to pick. 6 high for Sanders if Daniel Jones was also a 6th overall pick. And I know no draft is created equal necessarily.
And again, quarterback draft, NFL draft, 2 different drafts. So, no, given the state of this quarterback draft, 6 would not be shocking for Sanders to Vegas.
This is the blurb that he has on Travis Hunter. The Titans have made it clear they won't force the quarterback issue at number 1 if they don't deem one of the passers worthy of the pick. Miami's Cam Ward and Colorado's Shedeur Sanders will be in the mix here, given Will Levis's struggles, but Tennessee could go another direction. And that opens the door for a spirited debate in picking between Hunter and Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter. While there is little precedent for a prospect playing both sides of the ball in the NFL, Hunter has a rare skill set. Scouts have noted his determination and focus as reasons why he was able to play an astounding 1,458 snaps this past season. The Titans need help at both wide receiver and cornerback, and Hunter, who I'm ranking at corner right now, could boost either spot. He caught 15 touchdown passes and had 4 interceptions in 2024. So not only is Field Yates ranking or drafting Travis Hunter number 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans, he's drafting him number 1 overall as a corner.
Well, he's saying he is currently ranking Hunter as a corner and that the Titans need help at both receiver and corner.
Which is true.
I wonder if that is how it's going to shake out for Travis Hunter, where you're not going to draft him knowing where he's going to play. That he's just going to kind of get into the building.
You have to
have an idea.
You have to have an idea.
I wonder how much
especially if you're going to spend, Lucas, the number 1 overall pick, you got to have defined roles.
Well, regardless of where he goes, I wonder how much of an open mind the franchise that drafts him will have in regards to what position he'll play and how much he'll get to play the position that he's not primarily playing.
Sure. He is somebody who can help a football team. He's an impact player. The question is, how much impact is he going to have on both sides of the ball in the NFL? How much of that is going to be trial and error? Because, again, I'm assuming if any team takes him, he's going to get drafted. Whatever team takes him is going to have an idea of what they want him to do on defense and an idea of what they want him to do on offense, and they'll try it. And if one works and the other doesn't, then they'll probably make him more specialized as a player. Because he can do a variety of different things. He's an incredibly high-level athlete. It's worth experimenting a little, but you have to have roles for him to experiment with. He is, again, the only player that fits the qualification of generational talent in this draft class. There have been Cam Wards and Abdul Carters and Shedeur Sanders type of players before. There has never been a Travis Hunter. Does that mean that that's the kind of player that the Titans are talking about when they talk about generational talent? It could be. I don't know why, and it's nothing but a gut feeling, but I don't know why I have it kind of stuck in the back of my mind that we're going to spend all this time talking about quarterbacks just for them to do something like this.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing about this mock draft is that Field Yates has the Browns taking Abdul Carter, not a quarterback.
Now, again, he's not accounting for trades here. But what he's saying is that the way he sees round 1 playing out is based on current team needs. These are his qualifications for the mock draft. Current team needs, his personal player rankings, and what he's hearing from people around the league. So that's the 3 qualifications that he's taking into account when he puts out this. They are going to need a pass rusher. What's more likely to happen? Myles Garrett plays for the Browns in 2025, or Myles Garrett is not a member of the Browns in 2025?
The second one.
There is too many things that the Browns stand to gain from trading Myles Garrett that could also allow them to still have an edge rusher like Abdul Carter.
Also, he's saying he's done, and it's hard to put that back together.
It is, but it's not impossible.
It's not impossible, but this isn't you're not going to extend me, then trade me. This isn't that.
It's not a dispute over money. It's just, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yes.
Please let me leave.
It's hard to retrace the steps from that.
I understand that, but again, it's happened before. So NFL player leverage is not what it is in other leagues. Baseball players, I think, have greater degrees of leverage over their own circumstance than football players.
Sure.
Basketball players certainly do.
But we are seeing NFL players use their platforms more than ever to try to make up for that in a way by placing pressure on because it wasn't just Myles Garrett. We played the audio when you were gone. Trey Hendrickson talking about wanting to be either traded or extended by the Bengals. And the way he framed it was, listen, I just want the Bengals to win a Super Bowl, whether that means extending me and me helping you do it or getting help by the draft picks that you acquire by trading me. All I want is a Super Bowl for the Bengals. And then Joe Burrow sitting down with Stephen A. in New Orleans saying we need to keep all these people. We have cap space. TV money is as big as it's ever been. Like publicly campaigning for his team to keep T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, but you saw that from Jordan Love. You saw that from Josh Jacobs said, they need a proven number one wide receiver, which a couple of the wide receivers on the Packers roster, I think, responded to at some point in time. These things you're correct. They are more visible than they've ever been. But are they more impactful? Like, to your point, I've never seen a player do a tour of the Super Bowl the way that Myles Garrett did, telling people at every stop why he wants out, fielding questions about where he'd want to go, all these different things, and doing so comfortably, like doing it of his own will.
Yeah.
That's definitely different.
Getting questions like, well, what if they don't? What if they don't want to trade you? He's like, I guess they could do that. But behind his eyes, I'm seeing Myles Garrett looking at the camera and saying, Browns, please trade me.
Sure. But again, it's a cold business. It is an incredibly cold business. And the players' feelings, sometimes they are taken into account. A lot of times it's just lip service. It's just things that are said. Yeah, we'll try and do what's in the best interest of the player. Okay, but at the end of the day, you're going to do what's in the best. What's going to not get you fired if you're the Browns front office? Is trading Myles Garrett and Myles Garrett going on to win the Super Bowl the best chance to keep your job security just because it would gain a great deal of draft capital in return? And also, what is Myles Garrett being traded for? Because it's not like I don't expect Myles Garrett to go for 2 first-round picks.
Andrew Berry has said that's a no-go.
What, the trade at all?
Yeah, he's been asked, what if somebody were to offer you multiple first-round picks? And he shot it down. And it's public posturing. I get that.
The Titans weren't trading A.J. Brown. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care what these people say in front of microphones.
But that's the coach saying that, not the GM.
No, I think John was not publicly,
John Robinson was never on record saying, not as long as I'm the GM.
No, not the way that Mike was, for sure. That's different.
It's different when the GM is publicly saying multiple first rounders. No, don't care. And I believe him. I believe that he wants Myles Garrett to remain a Brown.
John was definitely asked at some point about trading A.J. Brown prior to the trade and did not, certainly did not say anything to the effect of, yeah, we're interested in trading A.J. Brown.
That was also an extension situation that did not get done. This is not that.
I get what you're saying. Players and their ability to publicly influence things has never been more available. I'm asking you what the actual impact of that is, because I don't think there's a great deal of impact in the NFL that way.
Myles Garrett is in a different category of player.
He's probably the best non-quarterback in the league right now. So we'll see. It's not Lev Bell, right? It's not who's the pass rusher from the Jets?
Oh, Reddick. No.
It's Hassan Reddick.
Hassan Reddick, yeah.
Had to think about it for a second. This is a different kind of a player, to Lucas's point. But I'm curious. Is the league going to bend to this guy? I would be surprised. Coming up next, you have headlines?
I have multiple headlines. The head coaching carousel is officially over in the NFL.
I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Will I have enough money when I retire? When should I start to draw from Social Security? If these questions are keeping you up at night, let me introduce you to the team that's there to keep you on the right track and, most importantly, guide you through it. That's Trajan Wealth, Trajan Wealth. Trajan Wealth is not just any financial firm. They're your partners in securing your financial future. And they're more than just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today at 615-270-5000 or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement.
What is going on?
Can we not?
These are the NFL headlines with Lucas Panzika, everybody.
What is happening?
I mean, what do you mean what's happening? The radio show is happening. It's just like, at what point can we acknowledge that being bad is just a part of our regular existence?
The Dua Lipa MSNBC theme mashup featuring Jackson Williams is not what we had in mind.
I forgot because we were supposed to do it at 11:20 and we moved it. Oopsie.
How many oops?
It's just always, I forgot.
Oopsie.
Or
0 days since the last oopsie on the show.
It's like, it's not even a days thing. It's like, did he make it through an hour without an oopsie?
I was up to 6 in a row.
The course correction of just running over Dua Lipa with the MSNBC theme and then going back to Dua Lipa and then just playing them at the same time. Oh, my goodness. I don't even know how I'm supposed to continue on.
Just do the headlines.
The head coaching carousel is officially over. It's wrapped up. The New Orleans Saints have done
February
the thing.
11th. That's crazy.
Well, sure. Well, we all knew about 2 weeks ago that Kellen Moore was going to be the next head coach of the Saints.
Sirianni, Hail Mary on the championship podium.
Yeah, he said, let's run it back.
Let's run it back, Kellen.
Nope. Kellen Moore is going to New Orleans. The Saints, I don't believe, have officially announced it. No, they have not. But multiple reports are saying that the deal is finalized. Kellen Moore helped orchestrate an Eagles offense that put up a record 145 points in the postseason this year. 55 in the NFC Championship game, also a record for the most points ever by one team in a conference championship, and 40, of course, in the Super Bowl 2 days ago. Kellen Moore is the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, who are still in cap hell, who are still over $50 million in the red for 2025, who do not have a quarterback. It's going to be a long haul for Kellen Moore.
There. He's under contract.
They do not have a future at quarterback, I would say.
So you want to make their cast off the Titans' future, which is what many people are advocating for?
Your words, not mine. Derek Carr will be 34 this season.
I feel like he should be older than that, but I guess
I agree. I also feel like he should be older than that. I would have guessed like 36.
So
he was drafted in 2014.
It is easy to imagine a world in which the Saints go about some cap relief by releasing Derek Carr. Until such time as that happens, Derek Carr is not available to be had. Kellen Moore is coming off, as Lucas said, a very successful regular season and a very impressive postseason run. I am not going to give Kellen Moore all of the credit, obviously, for the Eagles' offensive success, because what does Philadelphia have that New Orleans does not? They have Saquon Barkley.
So many things.
The best offensive line, arguably in football. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And Jalen Hurts. They have a superstar offense, and the Saints, very famously, do not. I don't know how this is going to work for Kellen Moore. I assume the question will be asked whether he'll call plays or not. I assume if he's being hired in this particular situation, it is because he has the ability to call an offense. We have seen, even here in Tennessee, it's not a seamless transition from a play caller, and I know that Brian Callahan wasn't a play caller in the traditional sense, but he was calling plays in Cincinnati, even if he didn't have the final say. God, what do I want to get rid of more, final say or collaboration? I haven't decided.
Not going anywhere.
But Saints are an uphill climb. They're in a division, though. The appeal of the Saints is the division.
Yeah,
there is
the NFC South.
There is no world beater. Tampa is your biggest threat.
They're the team to beat.
Tampa continues to be the biggest threat in the NFC South, and I would think that there are some reasons that you could nitpick at how viable the Bucs might be, although I've been doing that for like 3 seasons, and all the Bucs have done is find ways to still make the playoffs in the absence of Tom Brady.
The Saints have 8 draft picks. They have the number 9 pick in the first round. As we mentioned, they are still in cap hell. They do have an out for Derek Carr. They would take a cap hit, a dead cap hit of over $50 million if they were to cut Derek Carr. If he remains, there is a cap hit of over $51 million for 2025 and over $61 million for 2026. So
why is Mickey Loomis still employed? It's so weird.
So there you go. You can either get out now and take that hit of over $50 million, or just stay locked in for the next couple years. And his contract is up after the 2026 season.
I would think they'd be more inclined. If I was Kellen Moore, I'd be more inclined to just gut it out.
Yeah, he'll be 35 at that point.
Derek Carr's not awful. It's just they're not a good football team.
We'll see. It's just a matter of how much do they want to start from scratch in New Orleans? How much are they recognizing that this has to be a long-term project in New Orleans? By the way, Kellen Moore is 36 years old, so he is barely 3 years older than potentially his quarterback in Derek Carr. But we see that more and more these days in the NFL.
I mean, it's like, isn't Aaron Rodgers like older than Brian Callahan or something like that? Wouldn't it?
He is older than Brian Callahan. Yeah. By the way, AFC South, youngest head coaching division in the NFL. Brian Callahan is the oldest, and he's barely older than DeMeco Ryans.
So, okay, that's Cohen, that's DeMeco Ryans, Brian Callahan, and who am I forgetting there?
You're forgetting Shane Steichen.
Oh, Shane Steichen.
Yeah, they're all either 39 or 40.
Fun.
Yeah, fun. Okay.
wait.
Yeah, I got nothing.
What am I going to do with that? You
So,
just dropped that in my lap like a dead fish.
Real quick, speaking of dead fish, not much to do with this. Fox Sports projecting a Super Bowl record average audience of 126 million U.S. viewers.
Speaking of dead fish?
Yeah, this is a dead fish. What do we have to do with this? Of course, 126 million people watch the Super Bowl. There is no conversation to be had out of this.
Well, no, the conversation is how do they get to that number? Like, because I saw on the Super Bowl broadcast, it was being talked about that the Super Bowl was being broadcast to 190-something countries around the world. So I want to know what the American audience is.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That is the American audience.
That is the American audience.
Streaming and television. It peaked, this is Fox Sports projection, it peaked at over 135 million in the first half. The real question is, what percentage of that audience, 126 million U.S. viewers, know anything about the Kendrick-Drake beef and were completely confused at all of the Drake stuff that Kendrick was performing?
I thought about this even on the way into work, because I'm thinking, like, when's the last time I went a full day without listening to a Kendrick Lamar song? I don't think it's been like 2 years.
Okay, sure. I mean, that's you. I guess
know. So I'm running that through my prism.
But, like, serious question. What percentage of the 126 million people that watched do you think have any idea about what happened between Kendrick and Drake?
I mean, they're very famous people.
I'd say less than half.
Oh, yeah, less than half, for sure.
Easily less than half.
I would, but
like 20.
I might argue a third.
30%, maybe.
No, more than that.
I don't know.
I would be willing to argue.
That's a lot of people.
I would be willing to argue 30%. How many? I almost said a bad word. It's as close as I've been to dropping an F-bomb.
You're just online, and you see everyone talking about it online. That's 126 million people.
No, it's not just online. It was in the news. Like, these things are in the news. He just won Song of the Year for a diss track. It's everywhere. It's the most popular song in its genre. It is the top song of the year.
I'm with you, and I thought it was great and well put together, and I love the theatrics and the choreography.
No, but then I thought about it. I'm like, all right, who watches the Super Bowl that normally doesn't watch the Super Bowl? My parents.
Exactly. What do your parents know about Kendrick and Drake's beef?
My mom doesn't know who Peyton Manning is.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Yeah.
Like, 126 million people. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
I bet maybe 30% know about the Kendrick Drake beef.
30% feels fair, but 30% is also a huge chunk of the population. Genuinely, though, like, it takes a moment like that for me to be reminded, there's never actually been a solo rap act that performed the halftime of the Super Bowl. That's the first time that's happened.
Has there not?
Because we had the combination of Eminem and Fat 50 Cent and
everybody,
Snoop and Dr. Dre and all these people in Los Angeles a couple
on
years
the drums,
right?
Black Eyed Peas obviously are a group. So, yeah, I mean, they've leaned heavily into the hip hop genre, for the last 10 years or so.
Thank God. Can we not, just keep it modern? I don't need, respectfully to The Who and Bruce Springsteen in his 70s and all these different things. Like, I'm sure there's some level of the population that still enjoy that, but let's just at least keep the music modern. But I had to think about that because, I started getting tweets, and some of it's, coded language that you try to ignore, but people calling Kendrick Lamar mumble rap. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's not what that is.
What?
That's not what that is.
What are you talking about?
Creed for the halftime show, 2026, please.
Okay, but that's almost that honestly would accomplish a great many things because that's past, and they're having a resurgence. that's massive. But yeah, anything to keep us from going back to the dusty old rock acts. That has a place. I enjoy the music still. I don't want it in the Super Bowl.
I don't know. I'd be pretty pumped if AC/DC was named the halftime show for 2026.
What do you mean?
Because there was music before you were born, Buck.
No, I get that, but like AC/DC, when they were good, does not sound like AC/DC now.
The real cricket says...
That's like people complaining about Lil Wayne not doing the halftime show in New Orleans. Did you see Lil Wayne's last live performance?
Not doing so hot.
It was at like a WWE event. I'm telling you, Lucas, I have never had more of my childhood shattered than watching him. I mean, I don't think it's unfair to say fumble through that entire thing. He came out running,
and makes me sad.
He's out of breath like that. It's just all of it bad.
Oh, Lil Wayne would have been cool, though. Jay says, bring back Usher. Jordan says, give me Jelly Roll for the halftime show.
I'm for Jelly Roll for the halftime show.
Kent says, give me Foo Fighters. Foo Fighters, that's about as modern you can get in terms of a world-famous rock and roll band.
Isn't Dave Grohl trying to stay out of the headlines because he had like a secret family or something like that? To that effect? That was recently in the news?
Yeah.
I think he's trying to avoid that.
That was tough. That was tough. Usher was awesome. Usher was great.
Yeah, Usher was great.
Was a great halftime show. I think Usher and Rihanna are my two favorites of the last 5 years.
See, it's a good one because like Rihanna just came out and did Rihanna songs. There wasn't anybody out there.
Play the hits.
But also, like, Lucas, she doesn't have a new album out, so her and Usher are just going to do their hits because it's different.
But that's the
thing.
More
often than not, when the Super Bowl act has a new album out, they're going to do their new album.
I get that. But what do? You do a new album when you're on tour, right?
Why are we talking about this 2 days after the fact in the middle of the NFL headline segment?
You do a new album when you're on tour, right? And your fans are buying tickets to go watch you play songs from the new album. The Super Bowl is as massive an audience as you will ever play in front of. So I just wanted to hear some Good Kid, Mad City. I wanted to hear some older Kendrick stuff. Okay. We have spent way too long on this. The San Francisco 49ers. There is a little bit of news on this, on a couple different sides.
Immediately, we're going to get calls that I don't want on the halftime show.
Owner Jed York said on Monday that the Niners remain committed to keeping Brock Purdy with intentions of signing a long-term deal. He has 1 year left on his rookie deal, which has been one of the biggest bargains of the 21st century in the NFL, one of the biggest bargains at the quarterback position, probably in NFL history relative to what other quarterbacks are being paid. So there's that, and there's also Adam Schefter reporting this weekend that Niners star Deebo Samuel has requested a trade in his end-of-season meeting with Kyle Shanahan. And Deebo is 29. The Niners have extended Brandon Ayuk. They've extended Jawan Jennings. They drafted Ricky Pearsall last year in the first round. And he has 1 year left on his deal with a cap hit of over $15 million.
He wanted out before, and it didn't happen. And a lot of people at the time, now I don't know what level of involvement Rand Carthon had in keeping Deebo Samuel and getting a contract done at the same time that A.J. Brown was pushing out of Tennessee. But that was a thing that happened. And Deebo was ultimately, however they got it done, they soothed his issues, and they brought him back. And he had success with the Niners. Obviously, they didn't win a Super Bowl, but they had considerable success. What is the level of interest outside of San Francisco in Deebo Samuel? Because I'm assuming Deebo Samuel wants out. Again, these are assumptions. What has made Deebo Samuel super effective in San Francisco?
His versatility.
He's as much running back as he is wide receiver. I'm assuming Deebo Samuel doesn't want to continue to do that as he gets older. That's a lot of wear and tear. I know he's built out of the same stuff that bowling balls are made of, but still, like that happens after a fashion that your body starts to break down on you. And he's, what is he going to be, 27?
He is, thank you for listening, he's 29.
29, okay.
He turned 29 a little less than a month ago.
Do you want Deebo Samuel on your football team if it's just to play wide receiver? I'm going to answer that no.
There's a lot of teams that could use Deebo Samuel just playing wide receiver.
How is that team going to use Deebo Samuel? Because you're talking about Kyle Shanahan, one of the most gifted offensive play callers, that Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Juszczyk, the fullback that can run routes and all these different things, and Ayuk and everything else that they've had. They're not positionless, But Kyle Shanahan kind of makes those players positionless in that offense. McCaffrey, of course, I've forgotten about. Yeah. He didn't play a ton of football last year.
There's plenty of creative play callers in the NFL that could find ways to utilize a player with Deebo Samuel's skill set.
Sure, but what I'm telling you is if Deebo Samuel is no longer interested in being utilized in that fashion, how much does that limit?
It could lessen his value,
the creativity of Deebo Samuel.
He said to Adam Schefter, Deebo Samuel did, quote, "It was a hard conversation to have with Kyle because of the relationship that we have, but I have to do what's best. I'm more than thankful for the Niners giving me the opportunity of a lifetime, but now I think it's best that we find another team." So we'll see what happens. There is no Rand Carthon in the Niners front office to get sent to Deebo's house and talk him off the ledge.
I mean, you don't know that person doesn't exist.
That's true. They could have another ultra relationship guy in that front office, but few do it like Rand Carthon. In that regard, this tweet made me laugh from Ian Rappaport. 2 hours ago, he tweeted, 2 days after the Super Bowl, okay? This is February 11th of 2025. The Combine's in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And Ian Rappaport tweets, "The Jaguars' interview process kicks into gear this week." I'm talking about the general manager search.
The Senior Bowl's over. The Shrine Bowl's over.
Really? Oh, they're good. They're kicking into gear.
The medicals are about to start. Now, I guess theoretically they could still hire somebody like people who are not employed by teams at the time still go to the Combine.
Yeah, that's true.
It could happen.
They probably had people at the Senior Bowl, but he said that includes speaking with Bills Director of Player Personnel, Terrence Gray. There are roughly 10 or so candidates. And then Adam Schefter said 49ers Director, Scouting and Football Operations, Josh Williams, will become the first candidate today to interview for the Jags GM job. So they are in the early stages of this thing.
First round?
After the Super Bowl.
I don't know. Maybe they'll get it right. What do I know?
So we'll see what happens there. And then this is really quick. DeAndre Hopkins is not retiring. He has put out a tweet to say as much. There was
Adam Schefter,
a fake Adam Schefter tweet out there saying D-Hop is retiring after 11 seasons. And D-Hop tweeted 2 hours ago, "Don't know what you heard, but I'm not done yet."
People are calling for your firing. I've just gotten a tweet. At Willie Pineapple 2.
Oh, no, not Willie Pineapple.
On Twitter.
What did he say?
Tweeted just me and not you and says, "Please fire Lucas now." Creed? Really? What a clown. No.
Oh, no. We're all on the same page on that one.
This is the one time that you are going to get me and Lucas to team up, to gang up against you. No, you, sir, are a fool. A fool, a clown, and everything else in between.
Yeah,
Creed?
We want Creed at the halftime show.
Respect Creed. Respect Nashville native Scott Stapp.
What's the Creed mashup nobody wants?
Oh, with another artist?
Yes.
Apparently Kendrick Lamar.
Creed and Kendrick. Now that I would listen to.
There we go. Bring it home. More of your phone calls coming up next. Last call for them. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. Lucas spent the entire commercial break coming up with various combinations of Creed and other bands that people would definitely not want to see, but would delight us.
Creed and Doja Cat for Super Bowl halftime.
I saw Creed and the 1-800 Cars for Kids band.
I like that.
Proud partner of 104.5 The Zone, 1-800 Cars for Kids, of course.
I feel like Creed and Post Malone could actually kind of crush at Super Bowl halftime. Because Post Malone likes him some Creed. He strikes me as a guy who listened to a lot of Creed.
I just can't imagine that Post Malone. There's nothing that Post Malone that seems to bother him.
I know.
There's
That's
nothing
what I'm
that
saying.
seems to like that he doesn't like.
He's
just a very happy personality.
I know. He could go from congratulations to one of his new country songs to singing higher with Creed. Seamlessly. He could make that transition.
Seamlessly, you say. I don't know. Who did Creed bring out when we went to the Creed concert?
Hardy. They brought out Hardy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Who I honestly was impressed with. Like the range.
He's a talented guy.
On some of those songs, like I did not think that Hardy had that in his bag. I understand why that's kind of in the same vein. You got a little grunge country versus what is Creed's genre? Is it just rock?
Alternative rock? I don't know.
Alternative rock.
Jordan says Creed and Nickelback. No, one or the other.
The universe would explode.
Yeah. We can't do that.
It would like Scott Stapp would hit the note and like a black hole would just open up in the middle of the Super Bowl venue and just engulf all of us. The world would end.
Creed, according to their Wikipedia page, was prominent in the post-grunge movement of the late 90s and early 2000s. So post-grunge, I guess, would be the genre. Post-grunge.
But what? Well, okay.
I've always considered it to be more alternative rock.
I feel like alternative rock fits what I have, the idea that I have of them in my head.
Honestly, Post Malone halftime show is going to happen at some point, probably, right?
If he keeps doing Bud Light commercials.
That was good. That was a good one, which they did with Shane Gillis.
With Peyton.
Yeah, Peyton, the cul-de-sac, that was a good one.
I was not impressed by a single commercial this year.
I like the cul-de-sac ones from Bud Light, but yeah, none of them really grabbed me that much.
Eric is up next. 615-737-1045. Last call for phone calls before we get out of here for the day. Hey, Eric.
Yeah, and guys, I also like the Willem Dafoe pickleball commercial. Those are the only two I really cared about, guys. But a couple things, and both are Super Bowl related, because I've been kind of in and out on the show today. I'll get to my halftime thing in a minute. But earlier, I couldn't get through for the oh no. Guys, I don't know if you heard this. I did, and I thought it was hilarious. Eagles fans trolling the Chiefs fans. I guess it was midway to the end of the third quarter. They broke out into the tomahawk chop because I could hear it clearly in the background, and I started laughing. And I called a few friends, and they heard it too. That's when the Eagles, of course, were shutting out the Chiefs, so that would have been mine. Oh no. But guys, I'm saying this: you got to do this for equal time. What about Drake next year for the halftime show? Equal time to Kendrick Lamar. Because I didn't know if anybody called that in or tweeted that in because I heard you had the discussion. And I said, equal billing, you got to do Drake. Guys, y'all take care and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you for the call, Eric. Been a while.
I'm into that. Just let Drake have his get backs.
Did you see what he's doing? He literally went to the other side of the planet to get away from this stuff. He's in Australia.
Oh, he's hiding out.
Well, he did a concert apparently in Australia. Because I saw a couple of Titans players who were in attendance, like Thomas Odukoya was tweeting messages of support about Drake. Kendrick could never, which I thought was funny. But Drake came out in a hoodie that had what is supposed to be bullet holes in it and smoke. Like the hoodie was emanating smoke from the bullet holes and, all these different things. Like they took a bunch of shots at him, but, all he did was run to the other side of the earth to put on a concert while Kendrick Lamar is calling him a pedophile in the middle of the Super Bowl halftime.
Drake halftime show would do well.
It would do well.
If he plays the hits, again, like if Drake plays the biggest hits of his career, I think that halftime show could crush. I do. Tyler said he liked the sloth commercial from Coors Light.
I don't think I saw it.
It's like feeling sluggish and hungover and bloated on a Monday. The whole thing was about got a case of the Mondays. Oh, get a case of Coors Light. Like that'll help. Moving a little slow on this Monday, drink a case of beer.
Guess you would have had to been there, huh?
Yeah, I guess so.
Give me some bowls.
Is that because Buck looks like Borat with his newfound mustache?
He looks like great value, Borat.
Yeah, it's grown out a little bit since the knockoff Mike Vrabel look from last week. It's a little bit closer to Borat this week, I would agree.
Can we get an impression?
No.
Please?
I don't do impressions.
We just got one from Rick Bryan. Polls are presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Who is currently the best men's basketball head coach in the SEC? John Calipari, Bruce Pearl, Rick Barnes, or Nate Oates? Few people replied saying Todd Golden should be a submission, but I don't think he should yet. Yeah. Has yet to win any conference championships.
He's not in the same conversation as the other four.
No, not even close in terms of what he's done at that program or any other program. But he's doing a great job. Florida's a good team this year. 50.6% say Pearl. So he got the majority of the votes. And then it went to Rick Barnes with 23.4%. 21.1% said Nate Oates. Only 4.9% voted for Cal.
I don't. Bruce Pearl has had more. He's had more weeks as a ranked team, like ranked at the top, than Rick Barnes has. Actually, it's probably worth looking at over the course of Rick Barnes' decade.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee spent 5 weeks at number 1 earlier this season.
It's a good question.
Bruce has a Final Four at his current stop. Rick Barnes does not.
Yeah.
Same with Nate Oates. Rick Barnes' career accomplishments. I mean, he's one of the winningest active coaches in all of basketball.
I guess we have to differentiate. Are we talking about better basketball coach right now, or are we talking about over the course of their career?
I'm talking about right now, but I do think you take career resumes into account.
I think the answer
Cal is on this list because he's the only one here with a national championship.
I would argue that it's still Bruce Pearl, regardless of how you answer it.
Yeah.
Even though Cal has the championship, the last 5 to 6 years of Kentucky were just tough.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's Bruce at the moment. He also has the best team in the country right now. Is Patrick Mahomes getting enough criticism for his performance on Sunday? 67% say no, he's not.
I really don't think he is. I mean, I get it. Like, you throw your hands up in the air, oh, what's he going to do? The game's out of hand. He's scoring garbage time touchdowns. He's doing his best. And I believe that, but it was a bad game. I'm not going to say that Patrick Mahomes choked because the Eagles very much went out there and beat them soundly. But I expect significantly better from the player who I believe to be the best player on the planet. The best player on the planet is still Patrick Mahomes. Right now, even if he just got outplayed in the Super Bowl, I don't think that he's being treated the same way. And I'm not really sure why.
What in sports made you say, oh no, this weekend? Titans Better on Twitter says, Anthony Davis getting hurt the first game after the Mavericks traded the best 25-year-old in the NBA for him.
That's really bad.
That is pretty tough.
Who could have foreseen?
Joe says the Aaron Rodgers to the Titans talk gave me cold sweats imagining that locker room cancer in our dysfunctional organization. It would take us 5 years to recover.
I'll say this, and these things are always subject to change, but like as we sit here today, I don't think there's any real interest on behalf of Tennessee. Like, I don't think there's any real interest from the Titans in Aaron Rodgers, should he be available as he is expected to be available.
Yeah, Andrew also said, Aaron Rodgers in the Titans conversation, please no.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't think it's real yet. Maybe it becomes real, but right now, I don't think so.
Maybe he could help you win some games, but yeah, also, what more do we learn about Brian Callahan as a quarterback developer if Aaron Rodgers is his quarterback?
Nothing. Because Aaron Rodgers runs his offense.
Right. So, those are the polls.
Excellent. That's going to do it for us today. We appreciate you guys hanging out. No prime time from me tonight, though we will have more discussions on the draft and the pick and the quarterbacks and all the quarterbacks that are going to be available when we get back together tomorrow. So we'll see you then at 10.